Well, we had a big show yesterday, and today kind of a follow-up, but we'll segue into some Phillies baseball. I'm Mike Missanelli, Cruz here, Phil Colarulo, Ray Dunn. So let's get to the newsy part of this show right away, and it was the head football coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, Nick Sirianni, yesterday trying to, backtrack a little bit, probably at the urging of the Philadelphia Eagles PR staff. They knew they had to address it because it got a lot of fanfare locally and also nationally with people ripping their head coach, saying he was a clown, all this kind of stuff. So yesterday he comes on with his little press conference in the afternoon and says, I was trying to bring energy and enthusiasm yesterday, and I'm sorry and disappointed at how my energy was directed at the end of the game. My energy should be all in on coaching, motivating, and celebrating with our guys. And I've got to have better wisdom, and get this, and discernment of when to use that energy, and that wasn't the time. Now, if that's not an Eagle PR staff script, I don't know what is, because there's no way that this guy would ever use discernment in a sentence. All right? All due respect. I don't think he's like Mensa-level genius. So the discernment is not in his vocabulary. But here's what I want to focus on. All right, he said what he needed to say. The PR staff had to get something out there. I get it. Here's what I really don't understand about some people, some fans, because I looked at the social media reaction to this whole thing, and there were a lot of defenders of the two circumstances. One, that he jawed with the fans to say, nah, 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 nah. And two, that he brought his children to the press conference. Now, I have a problem with my own personality because I adhere to baseline logic. And baseline logic to me this is what I ask myself. Under the circumstances of that game and what was going on during the game, with the consternation about the head coach, the booing of the head coach, the fire Nick Sirianni chance of the head coach, how can anyone think that either thing that he did was appropriate under those circumstances? A, jawing with the fans. B, bringing the kids. You have to be blind morally to do those kind of things and have absolutely no self-awareness. And yet there are people that were jawing on Twitter saying, well, Mike, he's done this before with his kids. You're missing the whole point. How can people be so obtuse, Bill?
I saw the same people. You know, some people saying, look, he did it after the NFC Championship game. Yeah, it was the NFC Championship game. Well, let me say this, Mike, before I respond. I hate that we have to do this again. I hate that coming off of a win for the Philadelphia Eagles, for a 3-2 team that's battling for the NFC East, instead of us coming here and being able to talk about important things like the game and the injuries and the Giants coming up, we have to deal with a head coach jawing at fans, then being tone deaf and bringing his kids to the press conference, and then having to apologize. Yes, I mean, this is terrible. Like, I know some fans are out there. Why are you guys still talking about it? We have to still talk about it because it's on a national level being talked about.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. It's sports drama, and it comes in all forms. And we get involved in sports drama. It's fun to us. It's engaging. It's a big thing, part of our life. So when something happens, we react to it.
You've been doing this a long time,
yes,
Mike. You've been doing this a long time. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had to come on here and talk about a head coach's apology for jawing at his own fans?
Well, I've had to deal with head coach apologies for them doing other stuff.
Yeah, I don't think this has ever happened.
Not in particular, but it really doesn't matter what form it is. It is what it is. It presented itself, and we're talking about. My problem is the people that don't see anything wrong with it, and that's where I go, well, that's illogical to me. And again, this is my own personality. When stuff is illogical to me, it makes me crazy. Like, there's a baseline logic to this. It's like, okay, they're disgruntled with the head coach. They were booing him. They were saying, fire Nick. It's an issue. So since it's an issue, the fact that you jaw back at him as a head coach and a CEO is illogical, and so is the fact that you can't anticipate that you're going to get questions about it, and you bring your kids in. It's anti-logical to me.
It's surprising to me that Sirianni, and you may think he's not a bright guy or not, but he's been in this city for 4 years now. It's surprising to me that he wouldn't realize the whole "a win is a win" doesn't forgive everything. Because I think he looked at it as, well, we beat the Browns. It's going to be this celebratory day. I can go and have fun with the fans. I can go and bring my kids to the press conference. Like, he was not self-aware, and he was tone deaf that this city is different. Look, if this was the Midwest and you win the game and you barely squeak by the Cleveland Browns, yeah, maybe people would be happy. Maybe people would be singing songs and good job, coach. This city's too smart for that. Like, they watched that game and realized the way things went last year, the way things have gone so far this season, that when you barely squeaked by the Cleveland Browns, and although there were positives in that game, all wasn't just going to be forgiven like that. And I don't think Sirianni realized that. That's what surprised me the most, is he's been in this city that he thought all would be forgiven for one win.
Listen, fans are fans, and I think the fans here are smart. They're not tone deaf, the fans. And so, like, the people that are going, what's the big deal about this, I feel are tone deaf. And that's what I don't get. So today, I would like to talk to the people who didn't see anything wrong with what he did and try to explain themselves why. And your reason could be as shallow as, well, I'm a fan and whatever they do is fine. Or you could go deeper and say, well, I think that bringing his kids was a really humanitarian thing to do, and he really was proud of his kids. And like he said, football is very important to his family and the whole bit. And he really didn't mean it to be belligerent when he went to the sidelines. He was just trying to be like team-oriented and thought his players would like that, or whatever your reason is. I find it really odd that there would be people that look at that and go, there's nothing wrong with that, Mike. Nothing wrong with it. He brought his kids before. And that means they're tone deaf. And I don't want to think that these fans here are tone deaf. They're usually with it. They usually can discern patterns.
But I do think a majority of the fan base agrees with what you're saying. There is a select few. I mean, I've seen it too on Twitter, but I think it's a select few.
Let's get to this. This is Select Few Day then.
Yeah. No, I would like to hear from people.
I want to Select Few Day. I would really want to understand people's perspective, because my perspective and yours and Ray's is completely different on what happened. And when there's a disparity of perspective, I would like to hear the other side of it. You know, we're lawyers.
Yeah.
Right? We like to hear the other side of it. We're trained to hear the other side of it.
And look, I've been guilty of defending Sirianni. I can't even defend this. So I do want to hear from people who think that it was okay for him to jaw back. And I hate the analysis of, well, if the fans are going to jaw at him, he has the right to jaw back. He's on a different level. He's the head coach.
I guess you have the right to do anything, but like, what makes sense about it? That's what I want to know. I think this player appreciating that is just the phoniest thing I've ever seen. Deep inside, they're eye rolling, except when you get the C.J. Gardner-Johnsons of the world or whoever. But let's play a clip here, Ray. Damian Woody, first of all, who like a former offensive lineman in the league, and here was his perspective on it.
D. Wood, what'd you think of that?
What's this clown behavior, bro? This dude is a clown. Like, seriously, you gonna seriously talk trash to the fans?
Your own fans.
Your own fans. Like, listen, people come out here and pay big money to come out and watch you put a product out on the field. When you don't perform well, they have every right to boo you.
Damn right.
And you gonna get in all in your feelings because fans are booing you because your team stinks? Like, bro, come on. And then you brought up in our meet, like, oh, then you're going to bring your kids into the post game to kind of soften the blow from what reporters might ask you. This dude is a straight clown, bro. Like, I just don't have any respect for what this man is doing. Y'all barely beat the god-awful Cleveland Browns, and then you want to talk trash to the fans. Get the hell out of here.
I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown.
He didn't hold back.
No, I mean, it's funny, the perspective. Well, if you give it, you can't. You can give it, but you can't take it. Like, I don't it's so ridiculous to use that kind of a rationale. Oh, now the fans are sensitive, but they can sit back here and give. That's what they're there for. They're fans. They don't really know what they're doing half the time. They're just reacting on emotion. They have a different status than you. You're a CEO leader with a big $1 million job. They're people that are scratching together cash to go to a game to watch it. We're going to put them on the same level? Come on.
And you can't be that sensitive as a head coach that you're going to let some guy who's sitting in the stands who's probably played high school football get to you. But you did say something there, Mike, that the players are eye-rolling. You may be right. But this could also go the other way. This could galvanize these guys.
No, it can't.
Mike, it could.
This is not, but he's not John Thompson. That's why it's not going to galvanize. It galvanizes. Like John Thompson, Hoy Paranoia, us against the world, galvanizes because he's a big, strong leader of a man.
Well, we're
this
going to
guy
learn.
isn't.
We're going to learn.
Does this guy look like that to you?
He doesn't, but we're going to learn a lot about what these players think of their head coach over the next couple of weeks.
Galvanize your ass. 610.
That didn't sound too good. I don't want to galvanize my ass.
0975. Yeah, this guy's going to galvanize. The Mike Missanelli Show's back after this. Hour is brought to you by Window Nation. Take advantage of Window Nation's 50% off sale on all style windows, plus make no down payments with no payments and no interest for 12 full months. You call 866-90-NATION or go online and visit windownation.com. So we're going to have some Phillies news coming up at 11 o'clock. We're going to cut to pressers by Dave Dombrowski and Rob Thompson, and they'll be pressed on what they're going to do, what the plans are, who fits in, who doesn't fit in. I don't know how many answers we're going to get, but baseball is still in the forefront. A couple games on last night. I was watching them. I watched the Mets. Got one out, the grand slam there by Vientos as the Mets come back and tie that series. And the Yankees put on a display.
Any chance Dombrowski steps to the podium and says, "We'd like to thank Rob Thompson for his years of service. We are going in a different direction"?
No.
I don't think so.
No,
either.
not at all.
Would make the second press conference incredibly awkward. For all
it really would.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of their hand they're going to reveal, like where he thinks they have to improve. What's the status of the two youngins, Bohm and Stott? The outfield, they have to rebuild a bullpen, so it'll be interesting to see what they do there. So that's coming up. We'll touch on some baseball issues. But in the meantime, there's some breaking news as well. Davante Adams finally got traded to the Jets. Whatever that quarterback wants, he gets.
Yeah,
and they lose again last night. Of course, I took the Jets to win the game outright, and the 2 field goals that were beautiful.
A lot of penalties.
That could have given me a W. Yeah, it was a terrible game. And the Bills survive. So Davante Adams gets to the Jets. I mean, how much do these guys have left now? Like Davante Adams, does he have a lot left?
I think he's got more left than Rodgers. How old is Davante now? He's still only 31. I mean, I know these guys hit a wall quickly in the NFL, but he's probably got some
left. Does that make a significant difference to the Jets? Maybe it does. I don't know. That Jets team is just...
It would have if they won last night.
They're a mess.
I mean, if
they're always a mess. I like these franchises that are always a mess that can't seem to right it. You know?
It starts at the top.
Yeah, and I guess, in a way, you're supposed to be appreciative that the Eagles never fall into that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I think we talked a little bit about this yesterday. As frustrated as people get with Laurie and Roseman, and I've been guilty of it with Roseman's drafting sometimes, the Eagles organization is one of the better-run organizations in the NFL. It could be worse. And you look at the Jets as a prime example. It's, count your lucky stars sometimes. But let me ask you this. We heard an apology from Nick Sirianni yesterday. Any chance Dave Dombrowski gives us an apology for that terrible trade deadline, Ray?
Yeah, I think he will. I think he'll say, you know what, we thought we were helping ourselves. As it turned out, we didn't help ourselves that much. I think he's honest like that. But again, the statement from Nick Sirianni is, my energy should be all in on coaching, motivating, and celebrating with our guys. I don't know you have to celebrate with your guys, but I've got to have better wisdom and discernment of when to use that energy, and that wasn't the time. Now, I'm going to be honest question. When you read that sentence, did you think that was him or a product of PR?
In fact, I texted you as soon as I heard it on the air, and I said, here's the PR answer coming out. Yeah. I mean, it was obvious. Now, let me ask, it's clear that it came from the PR. Do you think they had a round table yesterday? Before the press conference, a big round table, everybody in the room.
Probably.
Different ways to handle it.
You got to, if you're going to write something for a guy, you got to write it for him.
Yeah, you can't use a word he wouldn't use.
You can't color outside the lines. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah, it's like if you're watching
it's like agents put out statements that it supposedly is coming from the player, and it's coming from the agent.
Yeah.
So, I've got to have better wisdom, end of story. And you don't throw the discernment in there. Is there need to throw the discernment?
I'm not sure Nick even uses the word wisdom.
All right.
I mean, yeah, you got to know the character you're writing for.
Exactly. All right, let's go to Doug in North Philly to start things off. Doug, you're on 97.5 The Fanatic, and you agree with Nick jawing at the fans. I like it.
Yeah, I just, for me personally, I think at that moment, understand, the game is an hour, quarter time and all that, but they're there for hours and hours on end. So who knows what this fan has been saying to this man for X amount of times. And we've all been to Eagles games. They're not just saying you suck. So at a certain point, if you look at the definition of fan, that's someone who's enthusiastic about their team and everything else. I just listened to the whole morning show where most people saying we're just waiting for Nick to get fired. That's not a fan at that point. That's his opposition. So of course he's going to say something.
Well, now why? Of course. Who else does it? Who cares what a fan is saying? Seriously. I don't understand your perspective here. What coach gets involved in stuff like that? Petty stuff from some idiot who may have had 7 Budweisers.
I'm not going to say that he was right. But
you are saying he's right. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying that it's not as big of a deal as what.
That's not the point, whether it's a big deal. You said that that you agree with him going, who knows what the fan said? Who cares what the fan said? That's my retort to you. So, answer that. Why should he care about what that fan says?
Because at the end of the day, he's only human.
But he's not only human. He's a football coach. He's a CEO. That makes him beyond just human. It doesn't make him somebody next to him in the stands.
To say someone's beyond human, that's the
It is. He has to be beyond human because his job is to be beyond human.
In that capacity.
That's the landscape of the job. You're not some enemy fan wearing the other team's jersey.
But you're an enemy to him because you're telling this.
But so who cares if you're the enemy to him? You're making $8 million a year as the head football coach of the Eagles. What do you care to get involved in something like that if a guy says it? Come on, Doug.
Listen, like I said, it's not even a fact. Like I said, if I believe that he's right, I just believe that at a certain point, you're talking about a grown man talking to another grown man saying what he wants. At a certain point, that's just not cool.
It is cool because you have to put up with it. That's the job description. The job description doesn't say, hey, if somebody breaks your stones, you have the right to fire back because you look ridiculous if you do that. You're not a leader if you do that. You're not a head football coach CEO if you do that. Come on, Doug.
Okay, I agree with that. I got from that perspective, yeah. But I just look at it as
this is the thing when people go, well, everybody has a right to step back on somebody when they're getting abused. No, you don't. You don't. You should be at a loftier maturity level where you shouldn't be doing because it depletes you when you do something like that. It doesn't make you the leader. It makes you just like a fool that you got goaded and baited in a flashing back at a fan.
Yeah, and the narrative, it's a grown man being talked about from another grown man. He should stick up for himself. It's not like they were face-to-face. Sirianni's got to go out of his way.
It's not grown man versus grown man. It's disgruntled, inebriated fan versus CEO.
Yes.
610-632-0975. Back after this. So it's 10:31. Let me just try to put this in perspective, right? If I'm in public or, in a grocery store and somebody comes up and says, starts yelling, Missanelli, you suck. Now, I'm an idiot, and I have a Sicilian temper, so I would probably go back at the guy. I would look bad in doing so. Now, here's the other perspective. If I'm the president of Beasley Media and someone says to me, your stations suck, now I can't go back and say bleep you to the guy, can I? There's a difference in perspective when you're in charge of something.
Yeah, look, we've gotten on Dave Tepper, the owner of the Carolina Panthers, because he jaws back at fans, and he's the worst owner in the NFL, how inappropriate it is. You're on a different level. You cannot engage with fans in that situation. And the fact, there's even a bigger problem here, Mike. We're talking about what he did outwardly when he jawed at the fans. The fact that he's listening to it during the game, to even know to jaw is a problem, because instead of being engaged in the game, you're worried about what the fans are saying behind you.
Yeah.
That's a bigger problem to me.
It is. And I this is why, listen, I didn't want to browbeat the last caller. I'm just trying to understand the perspective, because it has to be deeper than, well, like, that guy was abusing you all game. You have a right to get back. No, you don't, depending on what your position is. That's what I'm saying here. That's where it's anti-logical.
We all agree.
Illogical, anti-logical.
Yeah. Andy Reid's probably one of the best coaches in NFL history, right? We all agree on that. Do you remember, I think it was back in 2011, where fans showed up at the NovaCare complex and hung a sign, fire Andy Reid?
Yeah.
Doesn't get much worse than that. I don't think Andy Reid ever addressed it. Now, Kelsey and Evan Mathis did. They came out, ripped the sign down. As the head coach, you can't. Andy Reid would have never, ever have jawed at Philadelphia Eagles
There's
fans.
nothing to win in a battle like that. And so I go, well, how do you not know there's nothing to win? That's like why I take it to that extent. Like, what kind of a leader is this guy? Like, to not perceive that doing that would make you look bad, and having all these football people rip into you saying you're a clown. Like, how do you not know that?
There's nothing good about it. That's right, what you're saying there. It's less about what he did. It's more telling you about him, that he didn't even understand why you can't do these things. That's the worst part about it. And then even at the press conference afterward, thinking it was kind of funny, like winking. I was just being excited. Yeah, I was just showing emotion. Like, he didn't get it until the PR department said, listen, you're being embarrassed nationally.
And listen, I know people are disarmed by children at the podium. I get it. But again, you put it in perspective. If it's a jolly situation, then maybe the kids are appropriate being there. It's not a jolly situation. It's a contentious situation, because reporters are going to ask you about those little elements in the game, like the booing and your reaction.
But I still don't think he did it intentionally to deflect. I think he thought it was a jolly situation.
I agree with you, and that's worse.
Yes. He
worse.
thought that simply winning.
Because if you are diabolical enough to use him as a shield, at least you're thinking.
No, he's not that diabolical.
Let's go to Ruben in Philly. Ruben, you're on 97.5 The Fanatic. What's up?
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. How you doing?
Good morning, Ruben.
Well, I guess, Mike, I guess I wanted to call, and first things first, you are taking humanity away from Nick Sirianni. You're actually literally saying that he's above somebody or whatever, and that's not really a good thing as far as taking somebody's humanity away from them.
What are you even talking about? Humanity doesn't. This is not a street fight. Humanity doesn't apply when you're the head football coach. You're the head football coach. Where's you? No, it doesn't. You're going to get abused by fans all the time. Fans are going to catcall you all the time.
I mean, it sounds very mad, but initially I called about. I have no problem with what Sirianni did.
Listen, Ruben, you're not in a bar where somebody challenges you. You're on the sidelines, separate from a fan base that is there.
Well, we love Charles Barkley, right?
What does that have to do with anything?
He actually spit in a woman or a child's face.
Yeah, he didn't spit on a child's face on purpose, and he apologized for it and knew it was wrong. But what is that? What does that have to do with this?
I have no. You asked for people to call.
Yeah, but what does Charles Barkley have to do with this particular situation?
Because you guys pick and choose who you want to be mad at.
Was there? Listen to me. Was there anybody? Ruben, quiet for a second, and I'll let you. I'll let you give your thought out. Who did not criticize Charles Barkley when he did that? Who? Who accepted the fact that Charles Barkley spit on somebody? He was excoriated publicly because it was wrong. The same way this was wrong.
You said that. Can I speak?
There's a gap in the conversation. That means you speak.
Oh, sure. I was just making sure you was done.
Yeah, first of all, I'd let you go on being on a damn speakerphone when you're not supposed to be on a speakerphone.
I'm not on a speakerphone.
Well, then you got a crappy phone. But go ahead. Say what you need to say.
I mean, for one thing, again, you're mad. Again,
not mad. I'm not mad. I'm trying to understand your point.
You definitely sounded, man.
I'm trying to understand your point. You haven't made a point yet.
Sirianni, what he did. You asked for people to call.
Yeah, but I want you to make. When you call, you're supposed to make a point.
You're not allowing me to make any points because you're so mad.
Go ahead, make the point.
Sure. My point is, I don't have any problem with what Sirianni did.
Well,
yes.
Okay, why don't you have?
I'm trying.
Oh my God, I've had it. This is a two-way conversation, right? It's an A-B conversation, and now you can see your way out of it. As they said in what was that said in Boys in the Hood?
So Ruben was trying to make the point that we pick and choose who we're mad at. And that may be the case for people who have wanted Nick Sirianni fired for a long time. This is coming from me, Ruben. This is coming from a guy who's been accused of being Nick Sirianni's cousin on the station. I have defended this man every step of the way in deserving to come back. This is inappropriate behavior for a head coach. And yes, when Mike says he is above being human, in that element, as the head coach, as the CEO coach of a National Football League team, you can't allow drunk fans behind you to impact what you are doing. The fact that he's listening to it during the game is absurd.
I gave Ruben a chance to make a point. His point was when you're challenged, you have a right to use your human instincts. But you don't in all situations. You are not in a bar. Nobody to challenge you in a bar where you have to stick up for yourself. This is the stuff that the job description says that you have to let these kind of things roll off your back. That when you get involved in it, it makes you look silly. It's not a human situation. I'm the head coach of a football team where fans sometimes are going to catcall me and I can't respond to it. It's not a human situation.
And if this was just a human situation, why would there be an apology the next day? Like, why do you think Nick Sirianni had to come out and apologize? And it wasn't that I think he wanted to apologize. It's because the organization realized how embarrassing it was that their head coach did what he did. It was an embarrassment. As great as the Eagles organization has been, and we talked about it earlier, it's a very good franchise. It's a well-run franchise. They were embarrassed nationally. This isn't just Philly sports talk hosts trying to create something. This was a national story that was on every single website. Everybody in the country was talking about, quote unquote, the clown, Nick Sirianni. That's a bad look. It's a bad look for a reason because you can't act this way.
In general, and I would teach any children that I ever had, and I just had one daughter. But if I had sons, and I would say to them, if somebody abuses you, you have a right to stand up for yourself, right? But there are circumstances that applies, and there are circumstances that doesn't apply. In general, yes, you have a right to stand up for yourself. In this particular situation, it's ridiculous for you to stand up for yourself. It doesn't make one bit of sense. So when I ask people, give me a reason, okay, you got to have to give me a better argument than, well, it's human v. human, and you have the right to stand up for yourself. It's got to be a deeper argument than that on why you think this was okay to do. That's all I'm asking. And my man Ruben didn't give me that.
Yeah, I was waiting for the point. He didn't really get there. So
his only point was the primitive point of if somebody abuses you and you can't take it. Well, you know how many people have to take it in this world? You have to take it. Sometimes you got to take it.
You do have to take it, especially when you're in that role. When you're that guy, you're the head coach of a football team. You got to take it. People are going to yell at you. People are going to say things. They're going to say, fire Nick, fire Nick. You got to just take it. And if you want to use that as motivation in the locker room, he could have said to his players, these fans getting on us, blah, 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 us against the world. You don't react the way he reacted.
You go into a town square and there's protest against you for whatever reason, whether it's political or whether it's corporate or whether you have to kind of take that. For everybody that's going to catcall you, what are you supposed to do? Go after them? Like, is that the way what we're supposed to do in society? No, you have to take it. You just got to take it.
And it's not as if people are saying he's only human. It's not like they're calling his mother, a bad name I don't want to say on the air.
Well,
they're talking about football.
I don't know what they would have said. Maybe they did. And so who knows what they were saying. And maybe that can inflame you a little more than something that's just.
But if that's happening, Mike, if somebody's there and they're calling his, yes,
would be there.
You mentioned it to Big Dom. He takes care of security. They get the guy out of there. You don't go back at him. You don't jaw at him. But my understanding, it was more related to the game. It was more related to Sirianni's job. You just can't do it. And it stinks because I do want to be talking about the game. I do want to be talking about the fact that they're 3-2 and they're only a half game back of the Commanders. But instead, this is the story. This is the national story right now, is the head coach acting like a clown. Man. It's frustrating, Ray.
Right, you all right in there?
I'm good.
Okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Listen, I was letting you guys have your moment there.
What do you have to say, Ray?
I don't like it either. I don't know. You're looking for some great, unique perspective on this. I don't want the guy going after the fan base.
I don't want people to think I'm setting him up. I ask for people to. I just want an argument. Okay, I want the other side so we can have a conversation and an argument. Bill and I are pretty much, we've laid out our argument, but you got to lay out a better argument. Like if your argument is that doing that bonds you with your team members, I'll listen to that argument. I may not agree with it, but if that's what your perspective is, but you can't just say, well, it's human. It's human to human contact. If somebody, you need to stand up for yourself. No, no, you don't.
Look, the one thing here is this was set up when he came back. This is the environment that they welcomed by bringing him back. That's
what I said from the jump, that this was going to happen when you brought him back and things get off to a rocky start. There is nobody that's going to rally around the guy, and they should have known that when they did decide to bring him back. But they didn't consider that. I did. I considered that. Bill, you didn't consider that. He deserved to come back because of X, Y, Z.
I considered it, but all is forgiven when you win games. But it's got to be plural. He thought simply beating the Cleveland Browns 20-16, that all is forgiven. I could joke around with the fans behind me. I could bring my kids to the press conference. No. The only way you're going to win this fan base back is to continue to win and continue to be successful. One game, 3-2 to start the season, wasn't going to do that. That's what bothers me more about this whole situation is he was tone deaf in knowing this Philadelphia fan base that we're smarter than that, Nick. Just winning that game isn't kumbaya, we won, we're 3-2. It's no, you have to show us continued success for us to forgive and move on. Maybe you're right. Maybe they should have never brought him back because fans won't get over it. But I guarantee you if they win and they go to an NFC Championship game, things will be different.
If you win that game by 20, it's a different story. You could be fired up because his fan base is probably fired up at that point because you just crushed a bad team. It's like, oh, look, they look good coming out of the bye. You want to bring the kids up there because you're not going to have fire Nick chance at halftime because you dominated a bad team? That's great. You won by 4 points. You didn't cover the spread against the Browns, and you turn around and start screaming the fans that definitely had their money on Eagles minus 9.5.
It is crazy, though, because I said it yesterday. There were so many good things to take from that game. There was. But we can't even talk about it.
A few good things.
There were a lot of positives.
So much good.
A few things. But you know, here I got a lot of tweets. Right, so my Twitter is MikeMiss25. And the it's like people throw it back at you. Well, you know, Mike, you're so wrong. He's done that before with his kids, and I'll include a video where he did it with his kids or a photo where he did it with his kids. And I go, when you post that to me, do you realize at all that the circumstances were different? Like, do you understand what the circumstances were here for this particular game, where they were booing him and saying "Fire Nick"? Is that a little different than bringing the kids and let's celebrate and have lollipops when you know, the last time he did it?
They don't understand that the circumstances are different, but what makes it worse, Mike, Nick Sirianni didn't understand that the circumstances were different. That's the problem. He didn't understand.
Let's go to Joe on a cell. Joe, you're on 97.5 The Fanatic. Joe.
Good morning. So first of all, I'm not going to argue. I'm 100% on board with both of you guys. First of all, he should have been fired. Bill, sorry. We talked about this. If you remember, I called Kansas City last year. He did the same thing, embarrassing on Monday Night Football, jawing with the fans. Jalen Hurts had to, like, grab his hand. Like, the child, and I'm not calling Jalen the child, but, like, coach, player, the player had to calm down the coach. What are we doing? Like, how is this possible? And when Jalen Carter goes crazy on the sidelines in New Orleans, Nick Sirianni is going to calm him down? You have no credibility at all. Zero. It's an embarrassing situation. And for this team to allow him to bring his kids to the press conference, whoever was in charge of that should have said, no. Like, what is he doing?
You raise good points, Joe. I mean, you feel the way we feel about it. And listen, it's not the end of the world. I get it. We're not saying that like this is the end of the world, but we have to comment on what's in front of us. And what was in front of us is, why would you do that? Why would you engage with fans? Like, why would you bring your kids? So there's got to be a level of self-awareness, because that projects to how good of a CEO you are in charge of a program. And what I see is a pretty immature guy, and I don't want my head coach to be an immature guy.
No, and I think, you know, it's funny if you go into a store and there's an argument with the cashier, and the cashier gets into it with the client, somebody comes over making $2 more an hour, and they act very professional. They state the policy and they walk away. They don't get into a back and forth, and they're making like, you know, $12 an hour. I mean, come on.
I hear you. All right.
Yeah. Like, I'm sure when I went back, because I've watched this, and I'm sure you have too, a few different times, I'm sure Sirianni wasn't mean-spirited in what he was trying to do to the fan. I'm sure he thought he was having some fun, and it was in jest.
It was frat boy bravado, maybe.
Yeah,
it's frat boy football club college bravado. You've been through that, Bill.
Yeah, and it's possible. It's just what bothers me more about the whole situation is just the lack of the awareness for the moment. It's not the time or the place. He didn't understand it there.
Like, you know what it is? It's jock frat is what it is.
Well, that's how Sirianni is.
Yeah, it's jock frat.
But
you know, I've been to many jock frat parties in my life. It's jock frat mentality.
And I don't want Sirianni doing anything towards the fans. But I was thinking, like, all right, if he would have just turned to the fans and maybe kind of like pointed and gave them a thumbs up, or it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. It's, you know, like you said yesterday, was he 14 with the ear cup? And come on, man, you got to be better than that. You know, because you know he listens to all this crap. You know that there are more fans than not that were angry you were back.
Exactly.
You can't act this way. Don't give them reason.
Back in the day, Penn State wide receiver tried to pick up my girlfriend at a frat party, at a jock frat party.
And that was the last time you were with her?
No.
He took her?
No. She played it off. Like I was lurking. I was lurking around the corridor. I was listening to his spiel.
Were you in a fraternity at Penn State?
I started, and then I decided, you know what? I have access to all these jock fraternities anyway, so I didn't go through the process, but I hung out all the time at them.
Gettysburg, that was all. I mean, you're not really hanging out in the town of Gettysburg, so it's just all frat parties.
Yeah.
You have to be in a frat.
Yeah. 610-632-0975. All right. We're going to get some baseball talk. I know a lot of people on hold, and if those pressers are delayed, we'll get to your calls. But hang on, and we'll do some baseball. Dombrowski and Rob Thompson press conferences coming up after this. Hour with Mike Missanelli Show. It's brought to you by Grungo Law, your law firm when you need help because of an injury. Pray for peace, prepare for trial. GrungoLaw.com. We do have our Phillies executives at the podium. So here's Dave Dombrowski.
This is of all of your coaches. Are they returning? Are any changes?
Yes. Basically, we have extended Rob Thompson for 2026, and all the Major League coaching staff will be back.
And anytime a season ends in disappointment, failure, whatever, sometimes there's changes in the coaching staff just to get a new voice in there. Why did you guys feel that was not necessary at this time?
Well, I think we have a good coaching staff, primarily. They do a very efficient job. They did lead us to 95 wins, and they've been with us for a couple of years, a lot of cases 3 years, and some beyond that. But they're very efficient. They do their job well. We have a good manager. They work well with the manager. They report directly to him. He would have liked all his coaches back. So to me, it was pretty simple in that regard. It's hard for me to, anytime you're right, you do have a disappointing finish, which we did, but it's also hard to put that on their backs in that case. So I think we all share collectively in what happened, but it's one of those where putting it on any of their individual backs I don't think was the right thing to do.
And then why was it important to extend Rob an extra year?
Well, I think, first of all, he's done a good job for us. He's been a very successful manager. There's very few clubs in baseball that have made the postseason 3 years in a row. He has done that. We've been a very good club under his guidance. It's also one where I think stability in the manager spot, I don't think going into the manager's last year is ever a good situation to be in if you can prevent that from happening. He deserves the extension in that regard. I don't really want the focus. If you go into, I've been in a position sometimes willingly, sometimes unwillingly, where your manager goes into the last year of his contract, and right off the bat you lose 3 games in a row, and there's speculation on his job status. So I think it secures that people know how we feel about him. He's done a good job, and it gives us stability in that role. So he's deserved it, really. He's done a great job for us.
Okay, let's go to Marcus in the front.
Rob, do you believe that the structure of this roster with the 5 veteran, well-paid hitters and the 4 pitchers you have under control, or 4 pitchers you have in your starting rotation, and the 2 young infielders, do you think that this is the bones of a team that can win a championship, or do you think that significant changes need to be either made or additions need to be made?
Well, Dave, I think you mean too, right? That's it, right? I figured Rob. I didn't see him. I thought you meant me, so
Maybe
that's why.
I'll ask him the same question, I promise.
Okay. Yes, I do think it's a good roster. I think it's a good club. I think it's a club that's capable of winning a world championship. We've been close. We won 95 games. However, you're also open-minded to making adjustments. I think that's a necessity. You want to get better. You're never happy unless you win the whole thing, and we didn't win the whole thing. So I think we have a real good core of players. But again, I think we'll be open-minded to see if we can make our ball club better. So that's really our goal in this case. I think we're in a situation where you look at our guys, we had eight players make the all-star team. That means you have a lot of good players. We're in a position where a lot of when you talk about the veteran guys, they're really good players at this time. But you're always open-minded to making adjustments, however you may need to be better. So that's what we'll do. We'll go into the wintertime with that mindset.
Okay, we'll go to Scott on the left.
Dave, you guys were 61-32 after the sweep of the Dodgers here, and 34-35 the rest of the way. I kind of wonder how you sort of reconcile the first 90-plus games with the final third of the season, and where you feel like maybe things fell down a little bit.
Well, it's the up and down nature of the game at times. I wouldn't have anticipated us to have that same pace the first half of the season, yet I wouldn't have anticipated we'd have 500 record the second half, or right around there. I think there's a few factors. I mean, some guys were hurt at times, ups and downs of that regard. We just didn't perform quite as well at times during the second half of the season, some of the players. And I also think that, and I'll take the responsibility, when we went into the trading deadline, we were in a position where we looked at a lot of different things, and the 5th starting position was in a spot where, at that point, we felt pretty comfortable where we were. You looked at the acquisition of what some other individuals would be, but we had Tyler Phillips, who was pitching very well at that time. We had Taiwan Walker coming back in about 10 days, and we didn't think he'd pitch the way he pitched. We figured we had Spencer Turnbull coming back at the end of August, and we felt that he had pitched really well previously to getting hurt, but we thought he'd be able to step into the starting rotation. Well, none of those things worked for us. And so really what happened is that fifth spot, that's why it's a little misleading, the record. When you look at the fifth spot that we had, that was not a good spot at all for us the last 2 months of the season. So let's say you add 5 or 6 wins to there, which would be the case. That person, if we acquired him, probably wouldn't have pitched in the postseason for us. So we looked at it saying, okay, we think we're good enough to win our division as we stand. We did think those 3 guys, we'd come up with one of them to pitch well for us. And then also over the last couple of months, Ranger dealt with a lot of little things with them, nothing of major consequence. But all of a sudden, we're not going out there with a consistent 5-man rotation, which I think is very important. And we did earlier in the season. That was successful. So I think that had a large contribution to that.
If I can follow too, I'm just curious, like offensively, were there times where you felt like the group, the lineup as a whole was too easy to pitch to? Or, I mean, how did you sort of assess sort of the ups and downs that you guys had offensively?
Well, yeah, the unfortunate part, you have a tendency to focus only on your own club, right? This is a downtime from an offensive perspective in professional baseball. What was the average? 243 at the end of the year. Most of our hitters were better than 243. You see the scores in the games in most of the postseason. There's not a lot of run production taking place. So at times we are vulnerable to being pitched well, as are other clubs. But I can't say that like going into the last 2 months of the season that we thought, oh, that was going to be a major issue for us. But it's something we'll look at. We'll take a look at trying to address to see if we can make some changes. Sometimes, we talk about, it's interesting, and I know a theme is chase rate, right? I mean, everybody I read in here writes about chase rate. I think it was interesting, we got eliminated. We were 6th in major of the 12 clubs in chase rate in the postseason. And so that's not good, but it's not the worst. We didn't hit. We really didn't hit. Some of it's chase, some of it's approach, some of it's guys not being hot. We actually, if you looked at it, we chased less than the Mets did in that series, percentage-wise. But at times they got some big hits and we didn't. And so it's something that we're cognizant of. It's something we'll continue to try to address. But the reality is we have a good lineup. I think we were in the top 5 in Major League Baseball in runs scored, and we'll continue to strive to be better. But I also think that a lot of clubs are vulnerable to being pitched well. I mean, our starting pitching really shut down the Mets in the postseason, all in all. Unfortunately, our bullpen picked a bad time to not pitch well, and they had been very good almost all year long, particularly the back end of the guys. So sometimes, when you look at it, there's clubs that win 2-1, 1-0, and we just didn't do that. And then part of that was we didn't score enough runs, but we also, our bullpen did not have a good series.
Okay, go to Tim on the right.
Dave, by old-in new school metrics, Trea Turner has really struggled defensively since coming here. Will he remain at shortstop moving forward?
Well, when you say that, his metrics are very similar to what they were before he came here in many ways. So Trea has been, he will be our shortstop, yes. He's going to be our shortstop the coming year. But we also feel that sometimes you have to be careful with some of that. And I'm not sure which metrics you're using, but they're not always 100% the defensive. We put some, we rely on defensive metrics, but there's also not a perfect way of describing the defensive aspects of the game as far as we know. He did not have not an outstanding defensive shortstop. He does have good range. He makes really good plays at times, but he also makes too many errors at points. But he has improved. He's worked hard, and I wouldn't be surprised if he continues to improve despite his age.
Well, in terms of errors, defensive runs saved, outs above average, he has gone in the wrong direction the last couple of years. Why do you think that will change as he ages?
Well, he works hard. I mean, first of all, he's the rare player, and one of the reasons when he signed for a long-term contract, he's very athletic. And so his speed is still very good. He's still one of the fastest guys in baseball, so I don't think you can compare his aging process to, let's say, the average player. But he's a guy that's just very athletic. He works hard. He's got a good infield instructor in Bobby Dickerson. We saw some strides ourselves this year on some things that he improved upon. So that's why I think he'll get better.
Okay. Alex, front row on the left.
Hey, Dave.
Alex.
You mentioned the trade deadline earlier, and I'm wondering just how you would assess the moves that you guys made in general.
Well, we were very happy with the trades that we made at the particular time. I've been in this role before where sometimes you make moves and they turn out great. Other times you make moves and they didn't really turn out as well as you would like. I think in our situation here, I mean, there were really two major acquisitions we made at the trade deadline. Tanner Banks we liked, and Tanner Banks pitched as we would have thought he pitched. We think he helped our bullpen. He's somebody that'll be with us for an extended period. But he's also not a guy that we really acquired with high leverage in mind. So we got Austin Hayes, who we liked a great deal. Unfortunately, Austin Hayes got hurt almost immediately. He got hurt, and then he had the kidney infection. We really never saw a good version of Austin Hayes. So if you judge it on that, that was not very good. Didn't work out well for us. We like Carlos Estevez. He did a good job for us. He was solid. He helped shape our bullpen. I really liked even how he threw in the postseason until he threw the pitch to Lindor. So he was the one guy that threw the ball well before that. So we added the players that we thought we needed to add. Unfortunately, Austin Hayes got hurt, and there's nothing you can do about that.
And when you look at the high leverage relievers, their performance in the bullpen, do you kind of see that as like an aberration, or like what do you kind of make of their outings in particular?
Well, I would think it's more of an aberration, yes. Anytime you see a guy struggle a lot, you get perhaps a little concerned. I don't think they were overworked or overtired. And we all are searching for that answer ourselves. I still like our group, our core group of guys going into next year. We like them. Of course, a couple of them are free agents, as you're aware. I'm not sure where that will take us. But we feel very comfortable with Strom from the left-hand side, Alvarado and Banks, and then we like Kerkering. So as high leverage type of guys. I'm really not sure what happened at that point. I was as surprised as anybody, as I think all of us were at that point, because they had pitched efficiently. They have been in the postseason before. They're not young guys. Kerkering was the youngest, but they've had the experience. So I really, that probably surprised me more than anything, because when you have good starting pitching, which we did, sometimes you do win a game. I mean, you look into the first game, you're winning 1-0 going into the eighth. Well, a lot of times in the regular season, we'd win that game. And then we didn't. Our guys just didn't perform very well at that time.
Okay, Anthony, right in the middle.
Yeah, Dave, I have two questions for you. First, about Alec Bohm. How do you look at his season? This started off so well, becomes an all-star, and then has like a slow decline. And then how concerning was it that Rob had to pull him out of the lineup for Game 2 against the Mets?
Sure. Well, Alec Bohm's a good player. I mean, he's starting third baseman for the National League team. I mean, he's a good player. He knocked in 100 or close to 100 runs 2 years in a row. He's one of the top hitters in the league. He's improved defensively. He had an outstanding first half of the season and not an Alec Bohm second half of the season. But he overall is a really good player. He's a good player on the team. Anytime, the manager has to make those decisions on what he thinks is the best thing for his club. We knew he was coming off an injury that affected his hand, which makes it more difficult to hit at times. So Rob thought that we needed energy, and that was a move that he was going to make. He went into the game later in the day, into that particular game. So, I mean, those are the things I leave in the manager's hands. I mean, I wish he wasn't in a slump at that time. I wish he was swinging the bat well, but he wasn't. And the manager has to sometimes make moves to try to spark things.
Second question. A year ago at this time, we sat here, and you had some uncertainty about what your outfield was going to look like coming into 24. Now it might be the same uncertainty still existing, maybe even a little bit more. How do you look at your outfield at this time and how you're going to approach it going into the offseason?
Well, I mean, our outfield, yeah, it's more uncertain than our infield because our infield's basically set at every single position, and catching and a lot of starting pitchers and that. So, I mean, our outfield, all in all, has, I think it's turned out to be very average at the big league level when you look at it. I think we have one guy that plays every day, Castellanos. We like Marsh still. We like him. I think he's a good player. When you look at his numbers overall, he's good. He could play left or he can play center. We like Rojas, but we need offensive improvement there from him. We have a plan this wintertime. He's going to live in Clearwater. We have a plan from an offensive perspective. He's reduced his chase rate. He's still an outstanding defensive center fielder. He can run. But I can't say he's for sure going to be our center fielder, and we have Hayes, of course. We'll have to make a decision in that regard. So I'm not sure how it will be, but I would think that a couple guys for sure that are part of that equation are Marsh and Castellanos, and then we take it from there.
Okay, go to Dan right in the middle.
What are you going to do with Taiwan Walker?
Well, Taiwan Walker, he did not have a good year, as we all know, so no need to pound that into it. We have sat down with Taiwan before he left. He was given a very detailed program from a conditioning and throwing perspective. Not that he's in bad condition, but and to get him ready to try to get him back to be the pitcher that he was in the past. He is in a position where I'm convinced he will work hard on that to get it done. I would think he'll come to spring training with us next year, but he's not guaranteed a starting spot. I don't think I can just say, hey, you're our fifth starter. I think he would come to camp and be in a battle to try to win a spot in the rotation.
And last year in spring, excuse me, Bryce and Scott Boros both kind of lightly broached the topic of reworking his contract. Has that been brought up since, and is that something you think will even be on the table this offseason?
So what names did you mention?
Bryce Harper and Scott Boros.
Bryce, and Scott Boras. Okay, I didn't get the second part. Really, when it comes to, as I've said this all along, contract negotiations, I always keep private. I don't think there's anything to be gained by sharing any type of contract discussions, yes or no.
Okay, go to Devin on the left.
Hi, Dave. So before the NLDS, you mentioned the window and if it was closing, and you talked about all the young talent that you have coming up. Mm-hmm. Given, guys like Alec Bohm in the series that they had in the postseason, knowing you have guys like Aiden Miller and Andy Painter kind of waiting in the wings, how does that play into your roster and personnel decisions this offseason?
Well, I do think, and again, that's a common question, is your window over? Well, as I said, we have a very talented group of players, and we have some veteran players, and we have that group of guys in the middle now with the Bohm and the Marshes and the Stotts and the Sanchez's, that group. And then we have some young players also coming. There's a little bit, I don't think, well, Aiden Miller, I don't anticipate being ready this coming year. Crawford is coming very fast. I'm not sure that when we go into spring training, we're not going to count on him being one of our big league starting outfielders, but he's a lot of ability. Wouldn't surprise me if he came in any time. Andy Painter is another whole different situation. He threw for the first time the other day. He is a very, very talented individual, and it's apparent he's healthy, and he'll get a limited number of innings in the Arizona Fall League, and then be in a position where we're going to have to make a determination how we're going to use his innings next year, because he's not going to be a guy that we can throw out and count on pitching 180 innings at the major league level. But I think with those veteran players, we're not at a position where they're still not productive. I think they're productive at this time. You're always concerned as players age, the aging curve. But I don't think the window is closed as far as the Philadelphia Phillies are concerned. I do think that you close windows when some guys age and some of them are not part of your next step. But we're in a position where we have some good young players, and we have some other good young players in the organization too. The farm systems come on a great deal. Brian Barber and Preston Mattingly and Jorge Volandi will lead in the different groups that we have. And so it'll be a matter of moving people in. And we also have an owner who's been very generous to us, and I think we'll continue to do that. So I think the Phillies have a window to be a good club for years to come. Will all of these players be part of it? Most likely not.
Okay, let's go to Corey on the left.
Dave, you mentioned that Dave, you mentioned the chase rate. You guys are middle of the pack in terms of the playoff teams. You also have 4 right-handed hitters who skew more toward aggressiveness than selectiveness. How do you push this thing forward offensively next year if you're in a short series again? There's the randomness of playoff baseball. Do you need a certain sort of offensive profile? Is the guys changing their approach?
Well, that's a whole year away, and we got a whole off season to deal with that. We also still have 4 left-handed hitters that should also balance that versus a right-handed pitcher, for example, when that ends up coming into play. And so even though they do, I wouldn't put Bohm in that at all as a guy that's a big chase guy. In fact, he's just the opposite. He swings often and usually makes contact, so he's in a position where he's not a big chase guy. And so you look at, there are the other guys there, but I think it's one in which we're going to appraise what ends up happening for us. I mean, it's a situation. I do think sometimes, too, it's an interesting comment. Read everything that's out there, and some of you wrote it. So Trea Turner said, in his situation, I feel at times we get ourselves out. All right? It's a very enlightening comment because that is true at times, and other clubs know that. So we need to keep working with these guys where we can make the proper adjustments so they don't keep doing those type of things and don't keep. And we have a group that chases quite a bit. I mean, Nick's a chaser. He's better this year than he was. He worked better. He got a nice 2-strike approach. Trea's a guy that has traditionally done that. He's chasing a little bit more than he used to, but he doesn't need to be that type of hitter. I mean, he's a guy that can use the opposite field, and we'll encourage him to keep doing that. So everybody's an individual case as you go through it, but I do think it's something that we'll continue to focus on and try to get them to not chase as much. And there's we reduced it some from last year, and we'll continue to try to do it going into next year. Short series, a lot of different things happen. We had a lot of the same players in the past, and it's eventually, we made the World Series, went to the LCS this year. Unfortunately, we stopped in the first round here for us. But you look to get better, but we do have a lot of good players.
Okay, go to Matt in the back left.
Dave, will your payroll be higher in 2025 than it was in 2024?
I do not know that at this time.
Do you have the wherewithal to have a higher payroll next season?
I really can't. When you say that, I can't even answer that question. They're all tied. That's really the same question. So I really don't have anything to say about that because we haven't sat down and had that final discussion. But I have no indication that we're not going to continue to be aggressive in trying to have a aggressive payroll.
And you've talked a lot about the status quo so far. Where do you think you can upgrade this roster? Where do you look to upgrade this roster this offseason?
Well, I'm not really going to give you all those things at this point because I think it's a situation where then it's easy to say, well, if you do this, then you're getting rid of this player, right? I mean, the reality is we have a lot of good players, right? I mean, and so I think we just have to be open-minded to exploring what's out there for us, talk to some clubs, and see what ends up happening. That process hasn't started. Sometimes you trade good players for good players. And so those are the areas. I mean, the reality is we have a third baseman, we have a shortstop, we have a second baseman, we have a first baseman, we have a DH, we have a catcher. Probably need to, and we've talked about Russ JT a little bit more as we go forward. We talked about Castellanos, we talked about Marsh, so there's one outfield spot. The reality, we like our bench, we've got some good bench players. So if you're going, we have 4 solid starting pitchers, we can upgrade the 5th spot for sure. Our bullpen really pitched well, but you always want to look at your bullpen and see if you can get better and how that happens. But we've done a good job. Our people in the organization have done a good job at taking guys that are not high-profile relievers and making them productive pitchers for us. So we'll explore that. But I think it really comes down to an open-mindedness of conversations and see where that takes you.
Okay, Dave, you're in the front.
Hey, Dave, you've already touched on Trea's fielding, his athleticism, his acknowledgement of chasing and getting themselves out. I guess overall speaking, what gives you the confidence, and I know he was an all-star and a starter, that he can deliver at a high level in key spots at times in October for the remaining 9 years of that deal?
Well, I'm not going to talk 9 because that's a long way out, but I'll talk the immediate future. He's a good player. I mean, he's got a lot of talent. He's a very, as you said, he's an individual. He's very smart. I think he'll make some adjustments himself. So I just think that he's a good player that sometimes in a short series, guys have a good series. Sometimes they don't. But with the talents that he has, I don't see why he cannot have a good postseason.
Okay, go to Ty on the left.
Hi, Dave. You just mentioned maybe JT resting more going forward. He's, played a lot of games compared to other catchers. What might go in to a plan to kind of get him more rest and off his feet more? And do you feel like the current group of reserve catchers is strong enough to kind of be able to handle that and step in a bigger role?
Well, first of all, Rob Thompson will have to sit down and talk to him a little bit more. I mean, it's going to be one that we just ourselves, though, have said that. We have some guys that we are capable of doing that, but it's hard to play once 8 days or 6 games or something and produce from an offensive perspective. Defensively, we've done very well. I don't have any concerns about that. Stubbs has been solid in that regard, but that's a tough job for a guy to just play every, whatever it is, 6, 8 games. We like Marchand a lot. We think he's a real good catcher, and he's shown some offensive prowess also. He is out of options for next year. One of the things with Marchand we have to do is, it's been unfortunate, he's had a lot of injuries, but when he's played very well. So I think we have some people capable of doing that internally, but I can't tell you that they'll be for sure given the job. We just have to keep an open mind as we explore that this wintertime.
Okay, Jeff in the front right.
Hey, Dave. I know you mentioned Andrew Painter. Obviously, he's not going to throw 180 innings next year. But what role do you envision for him for 2025, and how soon do you think he can get into that role?
Well, he's going to be a starting pitcher. I don't think there's any question about that. Now, he has to earn a starting position with the big league club whenever it gets to that point. It's just... the rust is just coming off. It's like the other day he was throwing great. He gave up 2 runs, which is very unusual for him. He doesn't usually ever even give up 2 runs. But he'll get better and better and better as it goes out there, so the rust will come off. But the main thing we want to make sure is that he's healthy. He knows he's healthy. He's ready to go into spring training. Where I don't know is because we need to figure out how many innings we feel comfortable for him to pitch next year. And then we need to have a plan in that regards. Does he pitch at the minor league level for a while and then come up? Does he pitch 2 or 3 innings in the beginning and then have more innings at the back end of the year? Does he have a consistent number of innings all year long? Pittsburgh, I read what they did with Skeens. He talked about how happy he was with his situation. He started in the minors, but he wasn't coming off an injury either. So all of those are factors, and I don't know the answers at this time. Those will be things that we talk about leading into spring training next year.
Okay, go to Dave Murphy in the middle.
Hey, Dave, you mentioned that other kind of bucket of prospects that you have outside of Miller and Crawford. Kemp, Racones. I mean, you have a few guys down there, college guys. Any of those players, guys who you think are close enough to getting a shot next year that you would factor them into how you approach the offseason?
Well, I don't think they're guys that we're going to say they're for sure with a spot on the team. I think they're guys that if they come to big league spring training, which I would guess that they would. We haven't made those decisions either. They're talented enough that they could do that. Unfortunately, Rincones has been a guy who's been hurt a lot, so he didn't have a full year. If he would have had a full year, the answer to that would probably be yes. But he's also a very talented guy with some power. He can swing the bat. He's playing in the Arizona Fall League, so we'll end up seeing how he continues to progress. Kemp's a guy that he's really come out of nowhere in many ways, so he's a guy that could come to camp and surprise, but I don't think that we're counting on them to be part of our opening day roster in 25.
And then Turner, if you look at his fly ball rate has kind of spiked a little bit here lately, and the line drive rate is down, especially when you compare it to his MVP kind of season. Are there things you see in his swing that you think maybe an offseason can get him back to being more of a line drive type of guy?
I think so. I do think so. Kevin Long has talked a lot about that. Rob Thompson, we've talked a lot about it already. And I think that we're not looking for Trea to have to hit the ball in the ballpark on a consistent basis. We're just not. And sometimes, but he can, as you can see, he's got tremendous power. But I think the value of him, and when we talk about the lineup and different things, well, sometimes it's approaches too. Turner's approach, really, we're much more comfortable if he's more of a line drive doubles hitter that hits the ball at the ballpark some. I'll give you another example is Bryson Stott. I mean, for us, Bryson Stott should be an on-base type of guy. He's a guy that we're not looking to hit 20 home runs. He's a guy that can work the count. He has a good eye, although he didn't show it this year. So we think that Stott can come back and do that. So that gives you a little more balance of all of a sudden if Turner and Stott doing more of that. And I think some of that can be internal for us. And they're important parts of our ball club in that regard.
Thanks. Mike on the right.
Dave, when you look at upgrading the roster in some spots, what type of player do you think this team needs, or what type of skill set are you guys looking for in upgrades?
Well, that's a general question. That's a really tough one to answer because you just have to wait and see when you talk to people. You're looking to make your club better. You're not looking to be in a position to just change faces. So I think you're in a position where it depends upon who's available and how we weigh that and how they fit into your club. So, I mean, the way I would answer that question, we want championship players. Now, describe that. Well, there's a lot that goes into that, and I think that's how we approach it.
Okay. Where are we? Todd on the left.
Dave, when you guys signed Zach to the extension in March, a lot of questions asked about future payrolls, and John was asked about, can you guys possibly acquire more star players? He said, I think there's a way to do it if it becomes a necessity. I'm wondering, A, do you think it's a necessity to acquire a star player this offseason to get you over the top? And regardless, are there paths to do it either through trade capital or other moves you can make to maybe get yourself in the running for a star player?
Right. Well, I don't think we need to add more star players. We have as many stars as about anybody in baseball. So I don't think necessarily that you need to add more, and I think you have to be a little concerned. John is very accommodating and giving, but you're also in a position where you're still working with a payroll and trying to make things work for you and go into the future what you have. And would you be open to it? Yes, but I think you have to be careful because sometimes it's not only the star players, it's also sometimes the supporting cast. And when you look at it, we had 8 all-stars, right? I know they're not all veteran guys, but that's more than anybody in baseball. We have, when you look at our starting rotation, I don't know that of the top 4, there's a better starting rotation in baseball. When you look at some of the positional players, they're really good. So I don't necessarily think that the answer is always a star player. I'm not saying we won't get one, but I don't think it's a necessity by any means.
And then Hoffman and Estevez are both free agents. Do you see yourself signing one of them? Is it unlikely that you could bring back both, knowing where you are right now with payroll?
No, well, you never know with payroll because you don't know what other adjustments and changes that you end up making. We like them both. It's hard for me to imagine that you end up bringing them both back under the circumstances because I would gather they're both going to get offered long-term big dollar contracts, which they're going to be looking for. I don't see us spending that type of money on 2 relievers in our bullpen, but I'm just not sure at this time. But we like them both.
And then one last one. Is it important for you to extend Ranger? Is that something you probably would wait and see how he does next season?
Well, we like Ranger a lot. Understandably so. And we like the Ranger the first half of the season better than the second half. He didn't have there was a lot that was involved in that from his own perspective. But he's a good pitcher. And we're all very open-minded to having Ranger in the organization for a long time.
Alex in the front.
You mentioned upgrading the 5th starter spot. Given the uncertainty of when Painter would be ready to come into the rotation, how do you navigate that? Does that make it a little bit more difficult to upgrade that spot?
Yeah, perhaps. But, those are things we have to figure out, really. I don't have that answer at this time with the season just ending, Painter just pitching. So, it does make it a more difficult chore in the sense that you're not sure when he's going to come back. If you sign somebody, they're looking for a chance to get the ball on an everyday basis. There's some complexities in it, but nothing that's insurmountable.
And you mentioned Walker's going to be doing an off-season program. Is it going to be what he was working on during his rehab stint, like the weighted ball stuff, or is it going to be something different?
Well, it's a continuation of that plus more. Yes.
Okay, in the back right.
You were quoted as saying, regarding the playoff format, is that you would prefer to play in the wild card if you could guarantee you could come through it healthy. Would you like to see the playoff format tweaked in any way?
Well, I don't have a good answer. I mean, you can ask that, and no matter how you face it, right? Well, there's always challenges. Well, unfortunately, when you look at it, the challenge of having the bye, we're the only one that didn't come through it, right? So the other three clubs ended up overcoming that this year. And I think that, if you talk to, so you can do that. I'd rather make sure you're going to the second round, however you do that. If you talk to Baltimore, if you talk to Houston, those type of clubs, I'm sure they would have not wanted to play that divisional series because they lost. There's a lot of different thoughts and ideas. We've talked about this since it first was indoctrinated way back when the original wild card came into play. There's a lot of different ideas. I don't have a solution that solves the problem, unfortunately, when you have it. But the other thing is that, hey, we had a chance to get it done and we didn't with it. So, and the other clubs did. So I don't have a 100% answer that this is what I would like to see for the playoffs.
Okay, take a few more, starting with Matt.
Dave, what do you think the club's offensive identity should be moving forward, and is it different than what we've seen?
Well, describe offensive identity to me when you're talking about that. I don't know really even what you're asking me there.
Approach, things that are stressed.
Well, our approach, I mean, we're going to continue to approach and do things. I mean, your goal is to score a lot of runs, right? I mean, that's what the more runs than the other club, and to lead the league in runs scored. I do think at times you can always get better. I mean, you don't want to strike out a lot if you can avoid that. But yet, if you have a big power hitter, that kind of comes with the territory. You don't want guys who are not power hitters striking out a whole bunch. And even your power hitters, you don't want them to strike out a lot. I do think that you continue to emphasize two-strike approach. One thing I would like us to do, and that's going to fall into Kevin Long's hands, I really would like us to use the whole field a little bit more at times. We become a pull-oriented club at times too much for me. That sometimes gets in the postseason when you look at it. A lot of our hits didn't come the opposite way. And that's something we've already talked about ourselves. Now, the hitters have to buy into that too. They have to be in that position. And sometimes, you hear, I can't tell you how many times during the season, I don't even have a number of this, where you'll say, well, we tried to do too much, right? We didn't do that. Well, what does that mean? It usually means that you're not trying to use the whole field, that you're trying to, and it's not like somebody's putting it on their own back to say, oh, I want to be a hero. They're just really getting sped up in the moment. Whatever happens, and everybody's different. But I myself would really like us to use the field a little bit more than what we do. And we do it well at times, but then we run in other times where we don't. And again, it's something we've already talked about.
Okay, Taryn, back left.
Hello, Dave.
Hello.
I'm going to ask you to simplify something that I know you're not going to want to simplify. But when you were mentioning to Todd the number of stars you have in the clubhouse, the starting rotation, the all-stars on this year's roster, when you look at a team where their expectation was the World Series and you have all of those raw materials, what is the final missing piece, you think, to putting them over the edge in the postseason and finally getting that World Series, whether it's health or a player? What is the missing piece you felt like for this year's team?
Well, I don't think that's to me, the answer is not the missing piece. The answer is playing well at the right time. And so when you say that, I've always felt you go out there with 4 good starting pitchers, right? Well, we have 4 good starting pitchers. You go out there with a good bullpen. Our bullpen didn't pitch well. It just didn't. I mean, that's the way it is. But I really thought going into the postseason that it's an incorrect judgment by me and by a lot of us that we thought our bullpen would. That's what you're looking to do. We didn't score enough runs. We just did not. I mean, we scored runs in 1 game. We did not score runs in 3 games. And so You go back in the past years, there's some games we scored runs and there's other games we didn't, but you really have to play well at the right time. I've been with a lot of really good clubs. I mean, I was with the clubs in Detroit that had 3 future Hall of Famers on it and a lot of star players and won our division almost every year. And we never won the World Series. It's hard to win. There's a lot of good clubs out there. And so you just have to be the club playing the best at the right time and maybe get a break or two there. But that's what makes winning so feel so good, because it's so hard. And so you look at, when I look back and I say, okay, again, some of you may, the Atlanta Braves dynasty, right? They won 12 divisions in a row. And they won 1 World Series. It's hard. And so I don't think it's necessary. We have the talent to win. I mean, we can dissect it however we want, and I know you will. We're talented enough to win. We didn't play very well in the postseason this year. We just didn't as a club. Some guys did. I don't want to say that everybody didn't, because some people, you'd look at Zach Wheeler and you'd say, God, you couldn't be much better than that, right? But this was not our, to me, and that's what kind of hurts more than anything, when you look at the club and you say, that's a good club. Now, we weren't playing great all the way through the second half of the season, but there's a lot of really good players on there. And I read our players' comments, and they know it. We just didn't play well. So I don't think there's any secret formula. And hey, when I'm not putting, we didn't play well, but I take my responsibilities. I'm sure Rob Thompson will take his responsibilities. But sometimes you play well and sometimes you don't. And it just breaks my heart that but I've gone through this. I went through in Detroit Tiger clubs that were just phenomenal. We went through it with Boston before we won the World Championship. And that's where sometimes you got to be careful, because in Boston, we were there 2016, we won our division. 2017, we won our division. We got knocked out in the first round both times. We didn't even, now there was not the extra wild card like there is now. We lost both times in the first round. It was like, son of a gun, we got a really good team. Well, we won the whole thing the next year after that, 2018. So sometimes you play a little better, you get on a roll, you do the right things, and sometimes the same players can do it for you. Sometimes you have to make adjustments with things, and you have to be open-minded to it. I know, like for myself, I look at it, and you asked about the trading deadline. Well, for me, it really hurts that Austin Hayes didn't have a good 2 months, right? We thought, I take the responsibility, that Austin Hayes would really going to help us. And versus the Mets, right? Left-hand pitching, right setup, right matchup. He gets hurt. He gets sick. And he wasn't the same player after that. He's been a good player in the past. So you have to click at the right time for those things to happen. And I don't always have a rhyme or reason. I know we worked hard during that week off. I saw us. We faced live pitching. We did velocity machine. We did a curveball machine. We did all that stuff. But we just didn't play very well during this postseason.
Okay, finish up our last two. Destiny, then Tim.
Dave, do you think this team lost its edge at some point after getting off to such a hot start? And if so, do you think there's a lesson to be learned there?
Well, I can't. When you're around the club every day, like and you try to get a pulse of that, I never sensed that there was a let-up where people looked at it and said, okay, we're going to hold back on this, we're going to hold back on that. I never sensed that. But you watch the same games as I did, and we were not playing at the same caliber of baseball the second half. And we ourselves would say, what's going on here? How come we're not playing quite as well? Tried to identify those type of things. And we went through a down spurt. But I don't think it was where we were, like there was any lull as far as the approach was concerned. It just, again, we had a down period. Then I thought it kind of kicked back there for a while, which it was. I don't really get as concerned as others do on how you finish the lap. Once you've clinched, you need to keep, if you lose some games at that point, it's not really quite as high on mine, because I've been on clubs that have lost at the end of the season and they do great in the postseason, because I think at that point you want to keep your players sharp, but your philosophy is how do I keep them sharp and prepared and healthy to go into the postseason. But we just didn't play quite as well.
Okay, Tim, last one.
Dave, would you like to extend Kyle Schwarber this offseason, and how do you balance that with the amount of players you have signed into their 30s now?
Well, we like Kyle Schwarber a lot. He's somebody that's been up, but we haven't gotten into any type of off-season projections on who we're going to sign or not sign at this point.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dave. Thanks, everyone.
All
Thanks,
right.
everyone, for your time.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. That was rather lengthy, 45 minutes worth. Same points being made over and over again. And Bill already had the X, let's rip Dave Dombrowski X comments out there. So let's summarize. They're keeping Rob Thompson. I don't have a problem with that. And I think it's rationale. You let a manager go into a lame duck situation. It's never good. His excuses for the final third of the season, hurt, ups and downs, didn't perform as well. Trading deadline, we thought we were okay. Get the fifth starter situation. And Ranger, we were counting on Ranger coming back. It just didn't work out. Trea's going to be the shortstop. I was happy with the moves we made with Banks, Hayes, and Estevez. And unfortunately, Hayes got hurt immediately. It's an aberration for our bullpen guys. The failure surprised me. Bohm is a good player. The outfield, we were average at the big league level. So we don't know what we're going to do from there except for Marcia Castellanos and take it from there. Taiwan Walker going to give it a shot to come back. Painter might be in the picture with a limited amount of innings. There are two things that I didn't think he was pressed on, which was, Bill, you're probably the question you would ask, could you have done better than Hayes at the trading deadline? And Bohm, the question, Dave Dombrowski was not pressed enough on his temperament, hurting his ability. So those were the two things that stuck out to me.
And that was a great summary. You forgot one more, though, when he said our chase rate wasn't that bad. We were 6 of 12 in the postseason, and that bothered me. I just felt like, here we go again. No accountability. We have a really good team. Sometimes you play well. Sometimes you don't. We're going to bring back Thompson. We're going to bring back the entire coaching staff. Yeah, we're probably not going to sign any stars. We're a good baseball team. And, yeah, chase rate wasn't bad. I mean, come on, man. I mean, how many years we got to deal with this?
What did you expect him to say? All right. So now Rob Thompson's coming up. So let's here's what Rob has to say. We'll discuss this.
And same thing with the microphones and questions. We're going to start over here with Dan, right in the middle.
Rob, I guess first up, the extension. How do you feel about getting at least one more year? And are you taking it year by year at this point, or do you look long term? You'd like to keep going?
No, I think year by year is good with me. I've mentioned it many times. This is the only place I want to be, and this will be my last stop. I am also very happy that our entire coaching staff is coming back, because many managers will say it, but I truly believe that we have the best coaching staff in baseball. They work hard. They care about the players. They respect the players. And they get results for the most part.
Let's go to Lachlan on the left.
Hi, Rob. Dave mentioned the off-season program that you guys have for Taiwan Walker.
Yeah.
What is your confidence level that he'll be able to turn the page after the season that he had?
I think it's very high, because I think Taiwan's going into this thing, he's approaching it as if he's got to win a job. And so I think, knowing Ty, he's going to give his best effort to get this thing done. And I think during the season when we put him on this program, he was making strides. We had to cut the program off a little bit short because we needed him. I think if with the entire off season, I think we'll see more of an improvement. That's what I'm hoping.
Go to Scott on the left.
Hey, Rob, when you think about your offense and the profile of the offense as a whole, does it need to change a little bit? Did they maybe become a little too easy to pitch to throughout the course of the year? How do you sort of view how the offense profiles just in general?
Yeah, I think, and I've spoken to it many times, I think we really have to get them to buy into using the entire field. I think that will, and I know everybody talks about chase rate. I think just doing that will cut down on chase rate, because you're going to stay on the ball a little bit longer, and you're going to, you watch the playoff series, the Yankees game, I just pulled up. I didn't watch the game, but I pulled up all their base hits. Everything was from gap to gap last night. And if you do that, you have a chance to cover all pitches in any zone, and you're not going to be susceptible to the off-speed away, especially. So I think, again, it'll cut down on chase, and you have a better chance to get base hits. These guys are so strong. Our power guys, they can hit the ball out of any part of the ballpark. They just have to be able to stay on the ball.
So, I mean, obviously you'll coach them up a little bit to do that sort of thing, but does the mix need to change at all? I mean, do you have the personnel to hit the ball, to use the field the way you want to consistently?
Oh, I think so. I really do. You take the young guys, Bohm, Stott, Marsh. They all have the ability to hit the ball the other way. Harper obviously does. Castellanos, when he's at his best, he's hitting the ball the other way. We got to get Trea, and Trea knows that that's what his approach needs to be. We just have to make sure that we can help him in every way to get that done. And it's nothing that Kevin and the other hitting coaches haven't been pushing. We just have to get them to buy in and come up with a plan for them.
Okay, Todd on the left.
Rob, now the last two postseason series offensively have not gone well. Wondering why you think, the message that Kevin Long and his staff is delivering is reaching his players in terms of why you wanted them to come back.
With Kevin?
Yeah, with Kevin.
Oh, I think if you go around baseball and you talk to every baseball person and say, okay, give me your top 5 hitting coaches in baseball, he's going to be on almost every list, and he's going to be number 1 on a lot of lists. I think, it's a random game. People get sped up. We got to be able to slow them down. And even if they have the opposite field approach, still they get sped up at times. We have to make sure that they're doing little things, pass the baton, trust your teammates, keep the line moving.
Is it realistic to expect these guys to go into the offseason and make changes? In other words, like maybe this is just kind of who they are offensively, and no matter how much you talk about using the whole field and gap to gap, that these just aren't the guys that can do that?
Well, I think to a man we've seen at times all of them being able to use the field. So I think that they need to take that approach a little bit more, and I think they can do it.
Okay, go to Dave right in the front.
I recognize, Rob, that we're almost a week removed from Game 4, but to go back to Game 4, what was the reason that Zach didn't have a role other than emergency pitcher in extra innings? Why wasn't he used in the 6th to maybe give you a couple of innings, and I guess by extension, Christopher Sanchez as well?
Well, Zach's working on 3 days rest, and Sanchez working on 2 days rest. So I'm not going to put their future in doubt with this franchise. I just won't. I was a little more. It was Sanchez's bullpen day. Zach had thrown a bullpen the day before, getting ready for Game 5. So I was a little bit. Sanchez was a little bit more available to me than Zach was. Now we get into that game and we get into leverage situations late in games coming out of the bullpen. Sanchez hasn't done that all year, so that's why I stuck with our main relievers, who had been very good all year. It just for whatever reason, it just didn't happen in the postseason. So that's where I'm at with that.
And I know you expressed last week that the window is certainly not closed on this ball club, but after finishing further away from a world championship for 2 consecutive seasons after 22, why should fans believe that next season this club can make a deep run in October like 22?
Well, I think just because of the core. I mean, we have a good ball club. This is the roster is a championship roster. It really is. Dave and the front office have done a great job. Now, we haven't gotten it done. I haven't gotten it done. Do we make some tweaks for next year? Do we, we've already talked about it. Do we turn the lineup around or move people around to possibly get a more consistent offense? I don't know. We got to talk about it. At the start of the season, do we give more guys more days off? And I'm not just talking JT or one or two. I'm talking about everybody. Just so that maybe, was it fatigue that set in July? Maybe by giving guys an extra day off here and there early, we can extend that run a little bit longer and right into October.
Let's go to Martin on the left.
Hey, Rob. Obviously, this year there was a big concern about Marsh and Stott hitting lefties. Do you still think those guys can become good hitters against left-handed pitchers, or do you kind of go into next year thinking you might have to platoon, keep platooning those guys?
I think the performance of Marsh the last month, 6 weeks against lefties showed me a lot. He changed his approach. At the start of the season, he started off very well, and then I think he may have gotten a little pull happy. And then he got back to hitting the ball the other way and thinking the other way anyway. And I think that really helped him against left-handed pitching. And so it gives me a little bit of confidence that has that ability. And I think Stott has always had that ability. I just think Stott's swing changed a little bit during the course of the year. He's got to get back to who he is, and that's grinding out pitchers, seeing a lot of pitches, using the other field, hitting line drives. We don't expect him to hit 25 home runs. He's going to run into some, but we need to get him on base and chew up pitches for the rest of the lineup.
Go to Alex in the front.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Alex.
We know that chase rate was a big focus from spring training on, but you mentioned the importance of using the whole field, hitting the ball the other way. How much of a focus was that? How much was that message delivered to the guys?
I think that message was delivered almost on a daily basis, and I think you just have to get them to slow the game down at times and stay in that approach. Be cognizant that pitchers are going to try and get you to chase because that's what the numbers say. If you stay with that approach, I think you cut down on chase. I think you get more base hits, and I think you score more runs.
Is there something you think the coaching staff or the player, something that could be done differently so that message works a little bit more or gets through a little bit more?
Yeah, that'll be something that Kevin and the coaching and the hitting coaches and I will talk about and see if there's some drills or some cues, whatever, to get them to do that.
Okay, Jim on the left.
Rob, do you plan on spending any time with Bohm, or have you spent any time with Bohm? Talk to him after the frustration he showed. I know after you sat him, you spoke to him, but will that be something you look at this winter and this offseason to get him in a good frame of mind? He's an important young player.
He really is, and he's a really good player, and I know that there's a lot of talk of the second half or the last couple of months, his production wasn't the same, but he was, off the charts production at the start of the season. I'm not sure if you can expect a guy to maintain that through the entire year. And his numbers at the end of this year are actually better than they were last year. So he's making some improvement. But yeah, I think that is a priority of mine to maybe not spend time with him, but be on the phone with him, text with him, stay in contact with him.
And how did you end the season health-wise, in particular Bryce Harper with the elbow or the wrist? Will there be anything looked at down the road here or this offseason?
No, I think he just needs rest.
Okay, let's go to Dave Murphy in the middle.
Hey, Rob. If you look at Trea Turner, his fly ball rate has ticked up here recently, and the line drive rate is down from what it was when he was kind of really at his peak. But at the same time, pitching has gotten a lot better, since he broke into the majors. I think velo's up a couple miles an hour just since he broke in. So do you look at it as there are things he can do mechanically to get kind of that line drive swing back and be that hitter that kind of peppers all corners of the field?
Absolutely.
Or is it more guys approaching him differently on the mound?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I think they are approaching him a little bit differently. Excuse me. But yeah, I think he there's some tweaks in his mechanics that Kevin will go to work on this winter to get him to use the field, to get him to hit line drives. He's another guy. He gets on base and he creates a lot of chaos, and we don't need him to hit. He's going to run into 25 just because he hits the ball. I don't know how he does it, as small as he is, but he hits the ball a long way. But we need to get him on base, and we need to get him to steal bases and create that havoc.
Okay, Devin in the front.
Hi, Rob. So you kind of touched on this earlier, but the second half of the season, or really when you guys returned from London, there was a clear drop-off. Is there one or even a few, specific things that you can pinpoint as to what happened? Was it burnout from the hot start, and how do you, prevent that from happening again next season? Yeah, if it was that, like I touched on it earlier, maybe it's giving guys some days off earlier in the season so that the fatigue doesn't set in. But fatigue's going to set in with everybody in baseball. It's just a grueling game, and so many games and so many days. And I can't really put my finger on it. I know the questions have been asked, did they lose their edge? I don't think so. I mean, I'm around these guys every day, and they come in and work their tails off every day and compete. And I don't think there was anything like that. I think we just got on, we got into a bad spot there for a bit, and like every team, and we fought out of it. Let's not forget, we won 15 games in 5 out of the 6 months. So that's pretty good sledding. And we won 95 games to win a division, but that's not the standard here. The standard now is to win world championships. So I don't think there's any edge lost at all.
WPEN and WPEN HD1 Burlington, Philadelphia. A Beasley Media Group station live from the
the current state of the backups.
Yeah, I've got to talk to JT about that, first of all. But, we'll put a plan together, and whoever that backup is, we don't know yet. But we'll put a plan together, because I think if you give JT some time off, some more time off, I think his numbers will get better.
Same category, really. Do you think fatigue played a big part in what happened with your bullpen in the postseason?
Geez, I don't think so. The velocity was still there. You take Hoffman's case, 80% first pitch strikes, 70% pre-2K strikes. He just had trouble putting them away, and I think he was trying to make perfect pitches to put people away, and that's why you saw a couple of spikes there in that last game. He's just trying to be too fine. But, I don't think fatigue had anything to do with it. I really don't.
Go to Tim in the right.
Following up on JT, he was asked in spring training if he thought he could benefit from a little more time off, and he kind of pushed back against it. So how do you convince him that might be what's best for him at this stage? I'm not sure yet. He's a tough guy, and he's a guy like a lot of our guys. They want to play every day, But I'll have to do some convincing, I guess.
Okay, let's go to Ty, back left.
Rob, what did you make of Bryce's first full year at first base? His defense, and along with how you could maybe arrange the outfield every day. You don't have to worry about him only being the DH and moving back and forth. Just what did you make of that first full year?
With Harper being DH or Schwarber?
No, so what did you think of, in the last year you had to, Bryce was the DH, so then you had to fix Schwarber in the left. So what did you think of, one, Harper's defense, and then knowing he was going to be at first every single day, and how that made up your alignment?
I thought he was fantastic at first base. I really did. For a guy that's never played there before, and everybody thinks, we'll just throw somebody at first base. It's not that easy. He really took to it very well. And I think he's, defensively one of the best first basemen in baseball, to tell you the truth. He's come that far that quick. And, he still gets caught out of position at times on ground balls, not 3-4 hole, but that a lot of first basemen do. He'll just get better at that. But he's quite an athlete. He really has, and quite a baseball mind to be able to take to that as quickly as he has.
Colin, front left.
Rob, how would you self-assess the way that you collaborated with Dave in the front office and delivered the best messages to the players that you want to be an emphasis of the team?
Ask that again.
How do you think you collaborated with Dave in the front office and delivered the right messages to the team?
As far as collaboration with the front office, we work together very well. And even when we talk about the trade deadline, I was all in on not going after a fifth starter, to tell you the truth, because of where we were at with Tyler Phillips and Taiwan coming back, Turnbull coming back. We didn't know he was going to have a setback, and frankly, picking up Hayes, I thought was going to be a benefit. It didn't work out that way because he had the kidney infection, but Estevez did very well, and Banks played the role that he was supposed to play. So as far as the collaboration with that's very good. My message to the players is always about working hard, so preparing, competing, being selfless in what you do, and having fun at the same time. And they do that. They compete as well as anybody, and they have fun while they're doing it. It's a fun group to be around, and I wouldn't want to be around any other group.
Let's go to Marcus in the front.
Hey, Rob. Kyle Schwarber didn't have a great NLDS, but he hit almost 250 for the first time in a couple of years. And why do you think he improved as a hitter? And do you foresee him as your leadoff guy next year?
Well, the lineup construction, we're going to go through that and try and figure out a better way to have score runs on a consistent basis a little bit more. Is there a different way? Is it best to have Kyle in the leadoff spot? Don't know. We've won a lot of games with him in the leadoff spot, so we've got to really think about this. I think the reason that he had a better year was he went into the offseason last year wanting to cut down on his strikeouts. And so he wanted to think more, just what I was talking about earlier, thinking more about hitting the ball the other way, staying on the baseball. And he did that, and I think it really helped him with left-handed pitching. His numbers against left-handed pitching were probably the best he's had in his career. And I think, if more guys take that approach, we're going to chase less, we're going to score more runs.
And I think we forget sometimes that JT missed about 5 or 6 weeks with a knee injury that he entered the season with and then dealt with during the down the stretch. He told me a couple times that it was always there. How much do you think that influenced his production year long, really, since he had it all year? And do you think that there could be an uptick next year if the knee is a little healthier?
Yeah, I think it affected him a lot with his numbers, and I do think that the numbers will go back up a little bit, and I'm hoping that if I can persuade him or talk to him about having a few more days off earlier in the season, that the numbers even get better.
Okay, go to Dave in the second round.
You guys ran into one of the hottest hitters you'll see in the postseason in Vientos, and I guess Lindor's not really far behind him at this point. And we've seen in your guys' runs how much that can matter when only one or two guys are just on that unconscious streak. Does it make it difficult to kind of judge what really happened when guys are that hot, and what you actually need to do with this team, how much of it was just a short series and two of the hottest hitters on the planet and a pitching staff you don't match up well with versus, something fundamentally needs to change.
Right, yeah. I think we ran into the hottest team in baseball. And what they went through on the doubleheader to get in and then go in and beat Milwaukee, they had a lot of confidence, a lot of momentum. And so, not that we played particularly well, but we ran into a hot club. And so I think we, some of this we need to downplay a little bit and not just think about blowing up the club, because that's not going to happen, one. And we got a really good roster. So, short series, very random, this game. I really have a lot of confidence in this club moving forward.
I don't know if you can answer this without sounding like you're making excuses or anything, but I mean, a 5-game series, it's a short series and it's a completely different animal than a 7-game series. Couple that with kind of the wild card format right now. Is there anything you would change about this postseason format in terms of, how do you reward teams that win the division and don't put? It just seems like people aren't playing on the same kind of even playing field when you've got teams, playing 3 games against teams that are off for 5 games. And, is there anything you would change, whether it's a 7-game series, the NLDS, or everyone plays in the wild card round?
Well, I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about rules because they're out of my control. I would spend more time thinking about, okay, did we do the right thing between the end of the season and the first playoff game? Did I prepare these guys properly? That's what I think about. Do I want to play in the wild card series? Probably not. I mean, you want to win the division, right? That's your goal. So then you got to deal with, okay, what do you do with that time off? And did you do the right thing? Should we have had, instead of a 9-inning inter-squad game on Wednesday, should we have had a 4.5 inning and a 4.5 inning on Wednesday and Thursday? I don't know, but those are the things I think about as opposed to changing the format.
Okay, Anthony in the middle.
Rob, this might kind of relate to what you just said, but a year ago you sat here on this at the dais and said you did some self-reflection and there were some changes some things you would have liked to have done differently. I wonder if this year you've had some of those same thoughts. Are there things that you would have liked to have done differently?
Everything that went wrong, I would have liked to do differently.
Okay, Jeff here in the front. Let's go.
Hey, Rob, I just wanted to know what encouraged you about Johan Rojas in the second half, and in Clearwater, what would you like to see him progress on?
Well, his chase rate went down. His use of the field got better. I still want, the plan really is to improve on all of that and also to cut down on his swing, make more contact, line drives. The home runs will come in time, with age, with experience. Continue to improve his bunting, although it got a lot better. His short game got a lot better. But I think just cutting down on his swing and being able to stay inside the baseball and use the entire field is number one for me.
Okay, got a couple more. Start with Alex on the left.
You and Dave have both mentioned that there are certain players in the lineup who don't need to hit a ton of home runs. I'm wondering, with guys like Stott, Rojas, Trea, did you sense that maybe they were trying to do that, trying too hard to hit home runs, or felt like they needed to?
Yeah, I think possibly at times, but those guys will end up hitting home runs, but we just want them to be better hitters, get on base, chew up pitches. They'll hit their home runs, especially Stott. He's strong enough. He's going to run into a few. Marsh is going to run into home runs. Bohm's going to run into home runs. Just be good hitters. Just, be table setters. That's what we're looking for with those guys.
Okay, Jimmy on the left.
Rob, you
is he going to end
mentioned
after next
you would look at
question?
the lineup and how it might work best, and
Well, here is last
evaluate
question.
if Kyle should hit elsewhere. If he's not the leadoff man, is the leadoff man here now, or do you need to go out and get somebody to fill that role?
Well, I think it would be here now. Some people may have to change their approach a little bit, but again, I don't know if that's the best thing to do is to move Kyle out of the leadoff spot because he's really good at it, you know. But it may help protect other people.
All right. There you go. That was a long dissertation of the Phillies that really did kind of get boring because we went over the same thing. Chase rate hitting the other way, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like this plan, this grand plan to make veteran players now all of a sudden change their approach to hit the other way and be conscious of hitting the other way. It's just words. They're just words. So, you know, I don't think that you can come back with a different approach once you're a certain hitter. But that's just me. What were your thoughts on this whole thing, Bill?
Other than the fact that it was a snooze fest?
Yeah. Yeah, but here's the thing, though. They can't change a lot. And I know there's this notion, well, you're going to run it back. Well, they kind of have to run it back. They have to they only have a couple of spots that they can make adjustments.
Assuming that you don't make a trade of one of your guys. See, I think, and I get it, what's Dombrowski going to say? What's Thompson going to say? Yeah, we're going to blow everything up. They're probably not going to say that. But it does sound like they're running everything back, the entire coaching staff, all these players. I mean, it almost sounds as if, too, Castellanos and Marsh are definitely going to be starters in the outfield next year, according to...
Unless they trade Castellanos.
That's the move I think they may have to do.
Well, it's a possibility they would do that. They're not going to say that now, though. They have guys under contract and they're veteran players. There's only a couple moves that you can make here with left field and center field. All right, we'll talk about it. We'll also get back to the Sirianni conversation because, believe it or not, a lot of people stayed on hold through this whole thing, and we appreciate that. 610-632-0975. The Mike Missanelli Show continues. It's 12:24, and we get sidetracked today with all the baseball stuff. We avoided the coordinators for the Eagles today, which is just as well because I don't know if they could add anything that's peppy enough to overcome the fact that we're talking about Nick Sirianni's idiocy. But you heard from Dombrowski, you heard from Rob Thompson. If you have any thoughts on the Phillies and what they said, we'll take it. The one thing we did, we apologize for, we missed the keyword today, and the keyword was Bill, which is interesting that we missed that today. So we apologize for that, but it was kind of a Phillies press conference day, a wrap-up day. I'm glad that Rob Thompson was asked the question about Zach Wheeler and why he didn't go to either Wheeler or Sanchez in desperate times in that game, elimination game. I don't think his answer was adequate enough. Zach Wheeler was on 3 days rest. It wasn't like you're asking him to pitch 9 innings. You were asking him to get you through a couple innings. You're not putting anybody in jeopardy by asking him to pitch 2 innings. And he said Sanchez was a bullpen day, so why wouldn't you have used him? But he used Jeff Hoffman in that spot, and it didn't work out. So can I complain that he went to a high-leverage reliever? I guess not.
No, I mean, you didn't expect the bullpen to blow up the way that it did, but at that point, you had already seen your bullpen was struggling. So under normal circumstances, going to Jeff Hoffman, you're okay with it, but you knew that this guy had been struggling. What did he finish with, like a 41?
Yeah, I might have gone to Wheeler for 2 to get you to the 7th and then work those guys from that point on. But it's over, and we don't really have any answers except they have to run most of the team back. They got 4 starters back. Maybe Painter figures in it. They've got 4 bullpen guys, really. They're going to have to add probably a couple, and they'll have to deal with their left field, center field situation.
Yeah, and I know that you're getting a lot of lip service at these press conferences, but I'm taking Dombrowski at his word when he kind of talked about they don't need another star. I think the Juan Soto dreams that some fans have, it's not going to be a reality. I never thought it was anyway, but
you never know.
Please, Kevin Long.
If they move Castellanos, maybe they do make a splash for him. Harper's going to push for it.
Well, Harper,
whatever Harper does, they do. Whatever Harper says, they do.
Kevin Long is still here for one thing, and one thing only.
Juan Soto.
Juan Soto. That's his hitting coach, man. That's his guy.
We'll see.
I need you, Kevin Long, please.
So, Mike, you said, Philly season's over and all that. Then I got to ask you, violation? Vic Fangio comes up to the press conference for the Eagles wearing the Red October Philly sweatshirt today.
Yeah, it's a freebie.
And it's a freebie.
Yeah, that
violation, Vic.
That is a violation. Yeah, you
can't do that.
Defensive coordinator repping the Phillies?
It's not that he's repping the Phillies. First of all, it's a free sweatshirt that they sent to a lot of people. And the Red October's over.
No, I'm just saying that if you're in the mindset of limiting offense, don't you want this year's Red October Philly sweatshirt?
Good point, Ray.
Yeah. All right, so let's get back to the topic that we really blew into the first hour of the show. Was like I asked for people. I'm curious to know how anybody could have looked at that Sirianni thing going into the drawing with the fan or bringing his kids to the press conference and I saw a reaction that you're making a big deal about. He brought kids to the press conference before, and a lot of people had the opinion, and of course we had Ruben, our caller, say that he was challenged. And yeah, I like the fact that if you're challenged in a human standpoint, you got to go back at somebody. Well, that wasn't my opinion. So let's. People have been hanging for a long time. Chris from Willow Grove, let's get him in here. Chris, you're on 97.5 The Fan.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Bill. What's up? Thanks for taking me. I've had time to put some thoughts together here, so I'm a little.
All right, go right ahead.
So, the one thing you asked is a point of argument, and I think Bill, you're the one that said that it wasn't premeditated to bring the kids up there.
Yeah, I don't think. I don't think he did it to deflect. I think he completely misread the situation.
He's using them as a human shield, number one, almost. He did it before when they won, and I think it was calculated then. I think it was like, I'm bringing my kids up here. Or that, if not, then he's the biggest dum-dum in the world because he just put himself out there for his head to get cut off. Okay, now...
Well, I kind of agree with Bill that he thought that because they won, that everything was hunky-dory and that he wouldn't get questioned about the other stuff.
Does he have any barometer of the situation? And that's why the people were yelling at him. And that's what they were yelling. They were yelling, fire. They were yelling, fire you.
You're right. He did not have a barometer of the situation, which that's the thing that concerns me, that he doesn't have the barometer, and he's supposed to be the team CEO.
Yes. And also 2 weeks ago, I think he was yelling at pulling Jalen Carter back from doing exactly the same thing, yelling at fans. So my other point is this, he was doing that with the kids for a while before. It's so unprofessional to bring your kids up on a podium. If you were asking questions, I feel like you want to hold back a little bit with the kids there. It's like, come on.
Of course it disarmed them.
Not you, Mike.
We had Tim McManus. We had Tim McManus on, and he said exactly that. He said, "Now, what am I supposed to do? Ask him about the fire Nick chance that in front of his kid?"
Yes, exactly. Now, my other thing is this. He's got to go. But I'm done with the coach. I mean, my wife says I'm extremely insensitive, but I don't want coaches with kids anymore. We've had this before with Andy Reid. So what Andy Reid's kids did to the team one year. I know that.
Listen, you can't help with it. We're talking about kids bringing this to a press conference. I mean, you still have to live life. A lot of people have children. So it's not like you can ignore that you have to be a family man. I mean, look at Tony Soprano. He had to deal with the fact that he had children that he had to raise.
And what happened with Andy? The kids were a lot older, first of all. I mean, Nick Sirianni's kids are all under the age of 9. One of them, I think, is only 2. Andy Reid's sons were around the team, and they had eventually roles with the team. But that was just a sad situation.
Listen, if it's a celebratory situation, then you have a little more leeway to bring the kids there to absorb the moment. But I keep going back to the Steph Curry thing with the little girl.
But that is why that caller says he thinks he did it intentionally to deflect from the reporter's tough questions.
No, I think he's a stunad.
Yes, he misread the situation.
Yeah.
That's why
I'm the dumbest coach in the world.
Yes, that's why you could go back. The reason he thought it was okay to taunt the fans back after the game was because he thought this is a great situation. This is a happy time.
Well, yeah, and he said it. Like, I don't even want to play that soundbite again where he goes back to his high school and his brothers and all that kind of stuff. But that kind of tells you, like, where his mindset was. Like, he didn't think anything of it. And that bugs me more than anything.
There is no denying, and I don't know how people could say that they justify either thing that he did. But where you and I disagree is you think there's zero chance that this could galvanize the team and rally behind them. There is a chance, if they do truly respect Sirianni, and I don't know if they do or not, there is a chance that this could rally them, that us versus the world mentality. We're going to find out. Over the next couple of weeks, you're going to see how this team responds.
I actually think pro players respond that way to coaches in the NFL.
They
don't respond that way to coaches.
I don't agree with you. I think that these players are always looking for something to have that chip on their shoulder. Always. I mean, look at the Super Bowl run, the underdog mentality, the dog masks, all that stuff.
They're not going to play for Nick. They play for themselves, and they execute the plan, the head coach. You think those guys were playing for Belichick?
I do.
Yeah, they weren't playing
I
for
do
Belichick.
think that there's a part of it in the NFL.
He had a system in there that worked. That's all. They weren't playing for him.
I don't know. It's more than just the system in the NFL, man. I mean, it is the game where you have to have the most aggression and
idolize his head coach.
It's not about idolizing.
Well, what is it about that? Where are they going to play for their coach so their coach doesn't get fired? You actually think paid players do that?
I think that they look for every little thing that could potentially be
for themselves,
that chip on
but
their
not
shoulder.
for the coach.
Yeah, but this
Maybe
could
for
bring
themselves.
a team. This could bring a team together. Well, then how come there's coaches that get fired when teams stop playing for their coach? If you could stop playing for your coach, then you could certainly play for your coach
because you think he's an idiot and he doesn't give you a plan to win. That's why you stop playing for him.
Yeah, so two things will happen then. Either they're going to stop playing for him after this happened and think that he's an idiot, or you're going to see this team come together.
Yeah, you know what? I've covered a lot of sports. I've covered college. I've covered pro. There is a decided difference when pro players, they're not playing for their head coach. They're playing for themselves.
Well, you're going to learn a lot about this
All
team
right.
and the head coach over the next couple of weeks.
610-632-0975. Back after this. We're talking Sirianni, and nobody wants to talk about the Phillies, even though they just went on for 17 hours. It was the Jerry Lewis telethon.
The press conferences last longer than their.
We just listened to here with the Phillies.
The Jerry Lewis. The press conferences last longer than their postseason run.
It was the Labor Day telethon, and we raised $50,000.
They don't do telethons anymore, do
they
they?
Talked about the Phillies. So thank you for your contributions.
They don't do telethons anymore.
They don't do that thing anymore with the Jerry Lewis thing?
I don't know. Do they still do it? Maybe on PBS.
They do PBS telethons.
I haven't seen them
to raise funds. Have you ever donated to PBS?
I don't know if it was PBS, but anytime you donate, the frustrating thing is you then get letters in the mail forever.
Bombarded. I was a PBS donator at one point, and then fortunately for me, because it was like automatically being sucked out of my account. The telephone ended in 2014.
Wow, who looked that up so fast? Good job, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
10 years ago.
The money was being sucked out of my credit card account, and I had a security problem with the credit card, so I had to get a new card. And then, like they were out. At that point, they were out. They had no tap anymore.
You just reminded me of something. I don't know if this is inappropriate or not. Maybe when you have to question it, you shouldn't talk about it. But one of my best friends from college, he had purchased on television. They used to advertise that you could enlarge your mail part with pills, and he had signed up for it. He couldn't get him to stop sending it to him.
The pills?
They just kept charging him, and the way to cancel, he couldn't get him to stop. And he just kept getting these enlargement pills. And it didn't work.
Did he get enlarged?
No, he said it didn't work. But he couldn't get him to stop, and the way he had to cancel was terrible.
I gotta be honest with you. Keep them coming if it's working.
No, if they worked, I'm sure he would have kept taking them. But then he couldn't get them to stop sending them and charge them. They made the cancellation process terrible. I wonder if he's still getting them.
All right. Well, what are you going to do? Let's go to Hux on a cell. Has been hanging for a while. What's up, Hux?
Hey, what's up, fellas?
How you doing?
I'm doing great. I was doing better before I heard that Nick Sirianni, before his antics, right? And, a couple of things about Nick, right? What bothers me most is that he doesn't really get why it's not cool to do that with the fans. But I don't know if you noticed, he's been, walking on thin ice. As a matter of fact, he may have even fallen through.
Not yet, because they're going to win some games here. So he's going to get out of this. Right. But the subject, it was pretty clear to all of us that we needed to discuss. And I don't understand the people that go, well, why is it a big deal? They were getting on him. He can go back at them. Or
we won against the awful Browns. Now, we blew them out the way the Lions blew out the Cowboys. Bring on the antics. Let's have some fun with it. But
but here's the thing he doesn't realize, Hux. It was a win. But there were also other elements to that game that were going to be discussed. And the fact that he brought his kids there, he seemed oblivious that the other things were going to be asked as well. So,
right, and I don't think it was intentional. I don't think he did it intentionally. I just think he didn't read the room, the field, the notes, something he didn't read. He didn't, he was out there like Ray Charles. He didn't read something, and he didn't get the message that, right now we still got to focus on.
Why you got to bring poor Ray Charles? You got to bring poor Ray Charles into this, man. Come on.
Because he wasn't.
Well, you got to bring Ray into this.
So, but Hux,
Ray
didn't do anything to you.
Ray would have thought that you don't do those things better than Nick.
But Hux, what's worse? That he was unaware and didn't read the room, or if he would have done it intentionally? Because I think it's worse that he couldn't read the room than if he did it intentionally.
I think it's worse that he couldn't read the room.
Exactly.
Yeah, I do think that's worse because she tried to say that you got to I should have had discernment and things like that, but it's easy to say that afterwards. You got to be able to read the room in the moment.
Well, yeah, you do. He's been criticized for acting like the fool before, and apparently there was no lesson learned there, right? When you're engaging like that with the fans, the Frank Reich thing, you go back to the day, you look like a child. Really, you don't look like a mature leader of men, and maybe he can't be. Maybe this is what he is. This is what they hired. All right, now there's one
Hell
thing
yeah.
thinking a guy can evolve, but there's another thing. It's like he thinks that that's what he is.
And did you read the Reddit post, or did you see the Reddit post of the fan who's alleging that it was him that Sirianni was yelling at?
I saw it, but I didn't read the post. What did
So
he post?
I don't have any idea if it's true or not, but the fan says, where they were sitting, that early in the game that he started yelling to run the football at Nick, and that at that point, in the middle of the game, that Nick turned around and gestured to him.
It's coming.
Calm down, we will, don't worry, I'm on it.
It's coming, I'm on it.
Dude, are you kidding
I did
me?
read that.
The head coach is telling the fans.
You got rabbit ears. There's no question he's got rabbit ears.
You can't do that, Nick. It's indefensible that you are arguing with fans or even gesturing to fans what they're saying to you. They say run the ball and you're telling them we will. You can't do that. Even if you're a high school football coach, you're not doing that. A high school football coach isn't turning to the parents and saying, yeah, we'll get your kid the ball.
Does he have a headset on? How's he hear it?
It's one ear.
Oh, it's a one-ear headset?
Yeah, I think it's a one-ear headset.
Second down, he's answering the fans' problems. Third down, he's making the call. Like, what are we doing here?
It's going to galvanize the team, though, Mike.
Galvanize.
Yeah, this is
Your sister.
Quote of the day was Mike when he told me to galvanize my ass.
Yeah, galvanize your sister's
I didn't
sister.
need to be reminded of that.
Yeah, let's go to Casey on a cell. Casey, you're on 97.5 The Fanatic. Casey.
Mike, first of all, it's been a couple weeks you've been back, but first time I've gotten through to you. Great to have you back on the radio. Great to listen to you when I'm driving around.
Thank you, Casey. I appreciate it.
That's all there is with this dude. I mean, he's a high school coach. He just shaved his head for bye week to get the guys fired up. Like it's homecoming. Right? I mean, he shaved his head. Right? And then
I love the way you said that. To get the guys fired up.
Get them fired up. Yeah, big game.
That's
right? And he, of course he brings his kids to the press conference. He has, and when you ask him, you get the honest answer. It's like me and my brothers and my dad and high school football, and my dad was a coach.
I got to hear
the
it now.
love of the game.
I got to hear it now.
Oh my
Ray, I got to hear it now that he brought it up. Casey, I got to hear it.
This game
here we go.
is why me and my brothers are like, I'm going to get emotional. This game is why my brothers and I are so close, and my dad and I are so close, and my mom is a football mom. Like, this game means so much to me, and it's like, why do I have him? Why do I have them here? Because I have so many visions of what made me love this game. Being at Southwestern High School when I was there, these guys' age. AJ came to one of his baseball games. Like, these guys are gonna love
All right,
AJ
that's
for
enough.
their life.
That's enough. All right, Casey, your reaction. I mean, sorry, your reaction, Case.
I was in the car post game coming home from the stadium listening to that and screaming at the radio like, dude, why don't you tell me why we only won by 4 points? Why don't you actually talk about the game? Like
I'm sorry. I took a cheap shot at Nick by playing that, but I just can't get over it. I really I've experienced a lot of coaches and the way they talk, and this guy just.
I will say, and I agree, it's a very frustrating, annoying soundbite.
It's just weird.
But
it's not even annoying. It's just strange.
it is strange, but you know what we miss in there? He says A.J. Brown came to his son's baseball game, which still leads me to question. We assume that these players think Nick's a clown. We assume that these players don't respect Nick. I got a text from my dad earlier. I agree with Mike. They don't have respect for Nick. I mean, you got A.J. Brown going to this guy's son's game.
What is that really?
Do they actually not respect
What does that mean? A.J. Brown's a nice guy. Maybe he befriended the kid. He was in the locker room one day. I mean,
But
come on, that means they're galvanized?
Outside of Jalen Hurts, who gives these cryptic messages about
And
the
gave
head
his
coach.
kid a jersey. Don't you dare forget that.
And gave his kid a jersey. You don't hear these players taking subtle shots at the coach. I think they actually do like him, Mike.
They're just patronizing him, throwing him a bone. Come on.
I think they like this guy.
They're praying to St. Nick at night. Well, come on.
We've heard from more than one player that he is one of the best.
And you would get sucked into the gullibleness of this.
He holds them accountable.
A.J. Brown went to the kids in the Little League game. That means they're going to go through a fire for the guy.
I think they like him more than we give him credit for.
Oh, my God. Ray, help me out. 610-632-0975. We're back after this.
Fanatic.
It's because there's no way that this guy would ever use discernment in a sentence. All right? All due respect. But here's what I want to focus on. All right? He said what he needed to say. Here's what I really don't understand about some people, some fans, because I looked at the social media reaction to this whole thing, and there were a lot of defenders of the two circumstances. Under the circumstances of that game, how can anyone think that either thing that he did was appropriate under those circumstances? A, jawing with the fans. B, bringing the kids. You have to be blind morally.
Mike and Bill have been pleading their cases.
This is terrible. Like, I know some fans are out there. Why are you guys still talking about it? We have to still talk about it because it's on a national level being talked
See,
about.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. It's sports drama, and it comes in all forms. The people that don't see anything wrong with it, and that's where I go, well, that's illogical to me. And again, this is my own person. When stuff is illogical to me, it makes me crazy.
The Mike Missanelli Show Holding Court is brought to you by Grungo Law, your law firm when you need help because of an injury. We treat every case like it's Dallas Week. Pray for peace, prepare for trial. Now back to Mike Missanelli on 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
With all due respect, he's an idiot who wouldn't use discernment in a sentence.
Every time you say with all due respect, you're about to disrespect the hell out of somebody.
I guess there's no respect there, and I just... All right, I apologize for that. It's the 1 o'clock hour of the Mike Missanelli Show. This show flew by today. 1 o'clock hour brought to us by Ferguson HVAC, Lyon Conklin, attention HVAC contractors. For equipment, parts, and supplies for every heating and cooling job, visit one of Ferguson's account locations in Ben Salem, King of Prussia, Pensacola, and Westchester. And the Phillies Marathon Hour was brought to you by Service First Heating and Air Conditioning. Get 0% financing for 72 months, a $500 rebate when you purchase a complete heating and cooling system from Service First. Learn more at servicefirsthvac.com. All right. Are there any little tidbits and quirks that we have to go by today? I think I want to open this hour by playing Marcus Spears' reaction to Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, he didn't hold back.
And then we'll get to Damian Woody, who went clown on him. But let's hear what Marcus Spears has to say, Ray, about the Sirianni thing.
Nick Sirianni, keep your ass up out the stand. I don't let this, man, you better keep your ass, keep the main thing the main thing. You can infuse juice to your team without orchestrating it towards the fans. And the second thing is, we were in Philly for a Monday night football game. Them ain't the people you want to piss off, okay? Or unless you about to go out here and win a championship. I understand what you're saying, because players do need to see that from their coaches. They do need to feel like, I think always the best teams have felt like coach is one of us. Yeah. Or the other side of that is coach eventually removes himself and we take over. Yeah. Like it's either one of those things. But man, hey man, direct that to a different way.
Keep your ass out of the stands and keep the main thing, right?
Drop the main thing. There it is.
The main thing. He stole that one.
Yeah, did Jalen create that? Is Jalen the
main thing?
As far as we're concerned, he did.
Yeah, that's Jalen's line for me.
Wonder if that's trademarked yet.
You got to try and be the coffee bean.
You also started that one.
All right, let's go to.
No, he did not start keep the main thing. Thing. It's out there.
It's out in space. Let's go to Hugh in New Jersey. Hugh, you're on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Hello.
What's up? What's up, Hugh?
What's up? How you guys doing?
Good, man.
So I'm just calling, man, because I'm just, the whole situation's kind of just pointless to me. I'm kind of just like, let's get over it and just make a change. I'm kind of happy that he did what he did, and hopefully it's the reason they can cut this man loose, and we can move forward. Like, no, I'm like,
wait, you're happy that he did it because you think it's easier to fire him now?
Yeah, no, it's the reason, man. Just cut the man.
I thought you were going somewhere else.
I did too.
Let's move on, man.
I thought you were just going to stick up for him.
I mean, honestly, the team. No, honestly, I feel like he's lost the locker room. I feel like he lost the locker room last year, and then now it's like we're there. We're at a point where like these guys they're not playing for him.
Yeah, but don't you understand that A.J. Brown went to his kids a little baseball game?
Mike, you're being sarcastic. I still am not there with you. I don't know if he's lost the locker room. I know that narrative has been put out there.
A.J. Brown could have done 100 different things. He decided to go to a little kid's game.
But, Mike, hold on. You, for 1 second, 1 second, because I got to ask Mike something here. If he had truly lost the locker room last year, do you really believe they would have brought him back? If he truly lost the locker room.
I don't know what losing the locker room means.
He took him to the Super Bowl the year before.
I don't think they really have a choice. They decided to bring him back, and I don't think that they would have shed a tear had they moved on.
Minus 2 coordinators, they brought him back. You know what I'm saying? That's like basically he's at the end of the string or whatever. And, but at the same time, he took him to the Super Bowl the year before, and they figured they'd give him another chance. 2 different guys, calling the plays on defense, offense, defense. But at the same time, it's like you look at it, and, like, they're still running the same offensive system that failed at the end of last year. Kellen Moore's, it doesn't look like anything from his time in Dallas. I don't get this whole situation. Like, you got Saquon Barkley. I know there's some guys injured up front, but still, in situations, he's just calling the stupidest play calls. I mean, all in all, I think we need to move forward.
You raised a really interesting point, man. They hired Brian Johnson. That was supposed to, free up Jalen Hurts. That didn't work. Now, Kellen Moore is supposed to be increasing that motion, free up Jalen Hurts, and that hasn't worked to a certain extent.
I still get frustrated that every single thing that we don't like about the Eagles' offense or what the Eagles are doing on offense. Oh, it's Sirianni. Sirianni's putting his hand in the jar. It's all Sirianni. So when things go well on offense, it's Kellen Moore. When things don't go well, Nick Sirianni must be getting involved. I keep seeing it all over.
I'll tell you what, you find a way. Eventually,
yes, I'm going to defend him.
You find a way to defend Sirianni
because I am so over
so much good
the blown up narrative that this isn't Kellen Moore's offense, and that's all Nick Sirianni's fault. Do we maybe think...
This is what I'm telling you.
But could it also be Jalen Hurts as the quarterback?
Well, it could be everybody's fault. But what I'm saying is the tolerance level for your man, they don't give him that benefit of the doubt. This is what my whole concern about bringing him back was that, okay, they're going to get the least little thing and blame him. And maybe you're right. Maybe he shouldn't be blamed for the offense. But he's going to be, because they put him in that situation.
Right, so now I'm going to take it one step further to me saying earlier in the show that maybe they galvanize as a team behind their head coach. They put that chip on their shoulder, us against the world. Is it necessarily a bad thing? If the fan base doesn't like Nick Sirianni, who cares as long as the players do? And if everyone wants to put all the blame on Nick Sirianni, who cares if that helps the team win? So that's why I'm saying, as much as I'm against what he did, and I don't like it at all, if this team rallies behind their head coach, I don't care if us, the fans, don't like Sirianni as long as the team wins.
Where is this perception you have that Nick Sirianni is Alexander the Great? Follow me! Greeks! Follow me in the battle! Let's go! The 300!
No.
Where does this come from with you?
First of all, historically inaccurate. It was Leonidas who rallied the 300 Spartans.
It was King Leonidas.
Yes.
I mixed my heroes, my war heroes.
This is madness. This is hell. This is Sparta. Tonight, we dine in hell. Ray, we need a Spartan drop is what we need. Nick Sirianni is King Leonidas.
Oh, my God.
What I'm saying is, as much as we don't like it, it doesn't matter if we don't like it if the players rally behind them. And I'm not saying they will. We're going to find out over the next couple of weeks.
Every meal I have talking about the Philadelphia Eagles and Nick Sirianni is dining in hell.
By the way, our last caller's name was Hugh. I made a special point now. I've got to concentrate on saying Hugh.
Yeah, you got to say the H.
Because I usually I used to say you without the he. I had a girlfriend say, what are you talking? What is that? I go, what are you talking about? She goes, you say you. For either the word HUE or HUGH. And I go, well, that must be a Philly thing. So now I have to put extra emphasis on Hugh.
Yeah, it's not an easy one to say.
It's not. It's like you take the shortcut. You.
Yeah, you. Not use.
All right.
You ever use use?
No. No, my mother broke me out of that early.
Yeah, okay. I'm not
she told me, she also broke me out of water.
You don't say water.
I don't say water.
You say water. Water?
Yep.
Water?
Water.
No, it's water.
Let's go to Ish in Levittown. Ish, you're on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Larry and Timmy. No.
Yo, Ish.
Hello?
Hello, Ish.
What's Timmy up to, Ish? What's Timmy doing over there?
Oh, no, my bad. I was talking to somebody about some boxes. I'm sorry about that.
All right, go ahead, man.
But I just wanted to talk about the Nick Sirianni thing. I think we're making a big deal out of this. He brought his kids up to the stage. Nick is just a passionate guy, and I don't think, him arguing with fans is, I think he has a right to do that. I don't think the fans have a right to yell at him saying fire him after he just won a game.
But that, they didn't say that after the game. They were saying it at halftime.
Wait, halftime? Yeah, I would expect
they were booing him at halftime, and they were saying fire Nick, and then he lashed back at the end when he had the victory in hand.
Yeah, he just got mad. I think us as humans, we get mad at over things like that, especially
Really? But is he a human or is he a head football coach?
He's a head football coach.
Okay. So that means you got to be above the human part. You can't be like the guy next to you in the bar who insults your wife. You know what I'm saying?
I'd rather have a coach that show emotion than Bill Belichick like a robot.
Why? Why would you want that when Bill Belichick has had a ton of success?
He won 6 Super Bowls.
Yeah. Why would you want to have a coach with emotion rather than a Bill Belichick? What coach with emotion wins? Give me one.
Your boy Dan Campbell.
Yeah, Ish.
Doug Peterson?
Doug Peterson was emotion?
Yeah, Doug Peterson.
Come on, Ish.
Emotional intelligence.
He wasn't an emotional guy. Let's take a break. 610-632-0975 back after this.
Kincade and Salciunas. Listen weekday
Back here at 97.5 The Fanatic. We sometimes give up trade secrets and make fun of the people that work here and us, ourselves as well. So I just read an ad.
I know where you're going.
From a Calls and Lock service, right? Great company, right? But we get a script and then we go off script and we, add stuff and embellish stuff and do it in our own words. So I want to read the ad the part that I've been leaving out of these ads. All right. So the ad says, Tom and his daughter Chrissy, great people, run this family business with pride, continuing a legacy that goes back to the 1800s. Now, I wasn't. Apparently, this company was owned by Abraham Lincoln. Fourscore and 7 years ago, I could finally lock the front door of my log cabin. With, what does that? What do you mean continuing a legacy that goes back to the 1800s?
And then it says what, for over 40 years?
And then it says for over 40 years because the lock service has built a reputation. So if I subtract 2024 minus 40, what do I get? Do I get the 1800s?
I don't think so. I don't think you have to be a math major on that.
Well, anyway.
Although I did look up because I'm like, well, when were locks even created?
Yeah,
the first locks were invented over 6,000 years ago.
Oh, is that right?
That's what it says. The earliest known locks were discovered in the ruins.
McCaws and Lock Service might have been around. It was owned by Abraham Lincoln and Andrew Johnson, his vice president.
Honest Abe.
I don't know, man. Let's go. 610-632-0975. Tom in Alabama. Tom, you're on 97.5 The Fanatic. What's up, Tom?
Yo, Mike. How you doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
Good. Yo, Bill. How you doing, brother?
Tom, what's up, my brother?
Not much, man. What I'd like to know what we've done to deserve this kind of deal. I mean, I know that he's done well for himself, and he's undoing everything that he's done because he's making it where he's not even going to get considered for another head coaching position, bringing his children into it. And truly, I think when he gets hot-headed or whatever, he's made wrong decisions in the New Orleans game right before the half, and in the fourth quarter trying a 60-yard field goal. The same thing with the Atlanta game with Barkley. And then yesterday, he even admits that Myles Garrett made the same block and back to the house against Indy last year. So why would you do it right before halftime, a 57-yard kick after you totally mismanaged the clock instead of punting and playing it safe and going 10-3? I mean, his decision-making, we could be 1-4 easily because of his decision-making. I don't know who's calling the plays, but they throw the ball down the field too much. They're not even getting Saquon Barkley the ball. Each week he's getting less carries, less touches.
He had 18 carries Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know Shipley. Where's Shipley at? I mean, they should be running the ball more.
Well, hold on. So let's take one thing at a time, Tom. You said they weren't giving Saquon. He had 18 carries.
Yeah. Well,
what do you want? You want Shipley in there?
Now, I'd like to see what he has.
Why? You want to give the ball more to Saquon, and now you want Shipley?
Well, let's just beat Saquon to hell, Let's just to be done with him after this year or next year. I mean, why'd they draft Shipley then?
Well, you got Kenny Gainwell as your backup back. I know you want to see Shipley involved, but
why? What do you want to see Shipley involved for?
But look, the thing is
what's he going to give you? Some dynamic?
I want to see him get involved a little bit, maybe in the passing game, but not over Saquon. But this narrative that they don't get Saquon involved, he's had he's 7th overall in the NFL in rushing attempts, and he's done it in one less game than everybody else.
Schwartz wanted to shut down the run. It's not like they didn't give the ball to Saquon. They made it a point to shut that down. So, that's...
Well, there's also something that I think got lost in the shuffle here because of everything with Sirianni, and this is going to impact them going forward. Another reason why the running attack suffered, I think, against the Cleveland Browns, you lost Goddard early, and then you lost Jordan Mailata. Both of those are an integral part of the rushing attack, and I think they're going to be out for several weeks.
So you go integral.
Integral.
What the? I don't know. I don't know what the
integral. I
don't know what the pronunciation.
What's the correct pronunciation, Ray?
I say integral, but you just said integral.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the correct thing is.
How about this? They're an important part. You like that?
I don't know. We'll have to get to what the right pronunciation of that is.
I think you may be right.
I've heard it said both ways, and some people say integral, and some people say integral. Looks like tomato and tomato.
Tomato.
I don't know.
Potato.
Listen, it's not necessarily a terrible thing to bring the kids up. It's not a terrible thing. Like, you love your kids. They're cute. You want to include them in your profession. I get it. But there's a I don't know, the time and place. There's a circumstance that you have to consider when you should know that, okay, they're going to ask some questions that are on the edge here because of what happened at the end of the game, but also how peeved I was at halftime when they were saying, fire Nick. So that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's not, like, I'm not anti-kid. Like, I don't want to come off as a Scrooge here.
No, you are.
Right?
You're.
No, I don't think it's really a good look unless there's something to celebrate and you've won something and you bring the kids up and it's all, I don't know that it's proper on a regular basis. You know?
I agree, and that is the worst part of the entire situation. Sirianni, and this is not just about the kids, it's about cup in his ear, thought, we won, it's time to celebrate. All is well because we won. And he underestimated that this fan base is not going to be happy with just a 4-point win over the Browns.
It's integral, by the way.
What did I say?
Integral.
Integral. I'm going to say important from here on out because I'm not going to remember it.
It's like some people down south go, insurance.
Yeah,
right? When it's insurance. 610-632-0975. Back after this. show, we had some Phillies news in the middle of this show. Most of the time, we were just kind of, Nick Sirianni apologized. All right. I don't know if he had to apologize. The toothpaste is already out of the tube.
Yeah, what would you have recommended? If you're the head of PR for the Eagles, would you have recommended the apology?
I guess you had to say something, but the toothpaste, nothing that he could have said is going to make us look any differently at his mindset in doing it in the first place.
Well, him apologizing actually keeps it in the news cycle. Because now we're reacting to the apology.
Well, are we reacting to the apology? We're still reacting to the deed. The apology, I think we're smart enough to figure it out that the PR staff felt something needed to be done, and so they make him address it, and then they move on. That's what the PR staff does. But it's the whole issue of it that lingers.
It lingers. It lingers with us, but I keep coming back to we're going to learn a lot about what this team thinks of their head coach.
Galvanize him.
We're going to learn. Look, if this team comes out.
The persecuted head coach.
But look, if this team comes out on Sunday and they have a great game against the Giants, do we care about what happened with Nick Sirianni this week?
They're going to have a great game against the Giants because of galvanizing or because the Giants blow?
Well,
what do you think?
I'm going to tell you this right now, and we'll talk about it more throughout the week. Just like I said with the Cleveland Browns defense wasn't that bad, the Giants have a top 10 defense. So I don't want people to expect that, the offense needs to put up 50 points. The Giants have a good defense. It's not going to be easy. You're going to be without Mailata, without Goddard.
What's the line, 4?
I think it's 3.5 now.
3.5?
Right.
Is it so much to ask for a double-digit win over Daniel Jones? Is that a lot?
That's that line's telling you it's going to be a close game.
I know, but I'm saying, Deshaun Watson and the Browns kept it within 4. Now I got to watch Daniel Jones keep it within 4. At some point, it beats me up a little bit here.
That's scary. That's short of a line.
On the road.
It's the Giants.
All right.
They haven't been as bad this season, though.
Phil in Philly is going to support Nick here, I think. Phil, you're on 97.5 The Fanatic. Phil.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me on. I'll try my best.
Go ahead.
I just think we're kind of being soft as a fan base, to be honest. All I hear is people calling in saying, Nick was so mean to us. It's so embarrassing. We know who Nick is. We've known who he has been for the last 3+ years. He's a weird guy. He has weird press conferences. But, so what? So he chirps back at the fans a little bit. And to me, the biggest thing is, we let these national talking heads like Damian Woody and Marcus Spears try to, basically clown our organization. I think we should have our coaches back.
I don't. Listen, in fact, those guys are reacting as football men, right? They think it's if you're a coach who gets involved in the nonsense of a fan base that is just programmed to do stuff like that, then you're losing. Your guy is losing. You gotta be above the fray. You can't let that get to you. To chirp back.
But who's he losing to? The players obviously have his back.
They do. How do you know they have his back? And how do you know they're not saying, "Well,
they've all come out.
What all? What all? What are they going to say?
Team.
What are those guys going to say?
They said that they have their coaches back.
So what else are they going to say? Are they supposed to say we don't have our coaches back? It's faint praise, Phil.
You're not going to take their word.
It's faint praise. It's phony. Of course they're going to say they have his back, but they really.
Yeah, but you're saying
the majority of people look at that and go, "This guy."
Well, no, you're saying it's faint praise. You may be right, but I think, like you're saying, they're words. Actions will speak louder than words. This team, if they show up over the next few weeks and they go 3-1. 4-0. Are we going to be sitting here saying, they don't like their head coach? I think it'll show that they do.
I think you're sucking into this narrative, too, that this is actually they want to play for. They don't care about the head coach, playing for the head coach. They play with the game plan that makes them win, and that's what makes them admire their situation.
See, I agree with you when it's other sports. I think football and ice hockey, the way those sports are, you still play for your head coach. The motivation, the aggression, the things that come into those sports, especially football, I think there's a reason why you see players check out on their head coaches more than other sports.
Hockey changes coaches more than they change underwear.
Exactly.
What are you talking about?
That's why they do it. Because you can motivate a player based off of the head coach.
So one day you can motivate him as a good coach. The next day he stinks as head coach. What is that saying to you? That they're playing for the coach?
Yes.
They're not playing.
Yeah. That's why in hockey they do it. In hockey, you could start a season, change coaches in the middle of the season, and now the team could win the postseason.
Either
they do.
They play for the plan of the game. They're professional players. Hockey players are the simplest people on earth. They play with a natural desire. They're not playing for their coach.
I don't agree with you. I don't agree. I think, yes, game plan is important. I'm not throwing that out. But I do think in football and ice hockey, your coach matters.
At lower levels, it matters. And
even at the pro level.
It doesn't at the pro level.
Even at the pro level.
Yeah, I'm telling you. All this nonsense where you see these rah-rah in the locker room afterwards, the rah-rah only works if you're winning games. And if you're winning games, that means the plan to win games is what's superior, not the motivational barking that goes on.
So if the Eagles then now go on a winning streak, what's your reaction to what happened this weekend?
It will be no reaction because they should go on a winning streak. They're better personnel-wise than the teams they're going to play, except for maybe the Bengals.
All right. Now let's ask
I don't think it's going to have anything to do with them having Nick Sirianni's back.
All right, well, then let's ask the opposite.
If Nick Sirianni gives them the game plan that slays the Giants by 2 touchdowns, what am I going to say? Oh, man, look at that motivation he gave them.
So let me flip it on you then. Mm-hmm. They go on a losing streak. They look disinterested. They look like they have a lack of motivation. Are we not blaming the head coach?
They're disinterested because the plan wasn't good enough, so they weren't coached to a good enough level.
But we're going to say they checked out on the head coach.
You're bringing emotions into it, which I don't think apply when it comes to the NFL coach.
In the NFL, I think emotions apply. I do. I know you're saying they're professionals, but in that game.
They have 100 coaches that deal with them on an everyday basis. The one guy is not going to motivate them to play harder. The plan is going to motivate them. Scott in Cleveland, you're on 97.5 The Fanatic. Scott.
Yeah. Hey, greetings from football hell here out in Cleveland. You guys don't know how good you have it.
Oh, my God.
But as far as players playing, I think they play according to their contractual obligations. They play because they have a desire to win. They didn't get to be professional athletes by not having an insane desire and work ethic to get where they get. So I don't think the coach really factors in that much. But Nick Sirianni kind of mystified me, then annoyed me, then made me angry. But now I'm kind of more to the place of concern. A lot of people said his kids were there to shield him from tough questions. He got the tough questions anyway. I think he brought his kids up kind of more for emotional support because he just looks depleted and adrift. And I think anybody going through a difficult time, sometimes they look to their kids for help. They look to their kids for encouragement. And I think he just kind of did that. And it was a little bit cringy because he was like posting questions to his kids in the middle of the press conference. And his kids weren't even answering the question. So he couldn't even get support from his own kids. And usually kids are kind of the window.
Well, listen, they're young. They didn't know what to say. He was just trying to be cutesy.
They're usually the window dressing. After a win, they're cute. They sit on the lap. They don't even know. They're touching a microphone. He's actually trying to talk to them, and it was completely inappropriate. It didn't make any sense. It was like super cringy.
Yeah, I think he was looking at it like this will charm people. This will charm my kids. They charm me. So why wouldn't they charm other people? That's what I think he was thinking.
And I can't agree that it was for emotional support because I don't think he was a guy. You're not doing the Hulk Hogan to the crowd if you're upset. He really thought this was a celebration. That's why he brought his kids up. It was a celebration. You don't do Hulk Hogan to the crowd.
Right. He interpreted it as a feely-good situation. And part of the feely-good was to bring the kids up and be cutesy.
And he just misread the situation, which is worse.
All right, so we have an update on Paul George now. Nick Nurse saying today that everything checks out okay with the hyperextension of the knee for Paul George. We have not gotten into any Sixers talk at all. I watched the game yesterday, and they looked better than the Atlanta Hawks did.
You didn't think Ricky Council
a lot of players. Well, I'm not that big a Ricky Council fan because I don't like. It's the same reason why I didn't like Paul Reed. I think they're too wild. Like I look at his game and it's too wild. Now he He made a couple shots. I don't know if he's a consistent jump shooter, but he's all over the place. And
he's still young.
He is, but what I'm saying is, like, can you play meaningful minutes on this team, which has a lot of veteran bench players, by being all over the place? The only thing I say about him is I don't know whether he's going to make any kind of significant bench contribution. That's what I tweeted last night.
Yeah, you may not be wrong. How's the Dancing Bear look to you?
Like the Dancing Bear. I'm not expecting a lot out of him. I'm expecting some minutes, some rebounds, but not a significant development.
Like every other year, though, it's all about health. I mean, it's a fact that we're sitting here. It's October 15th, and we're already worried about Paul George's knee and Joel Embiid. Now, Joel said, we didn't really talk about this. Joel said he may never play a back-to-back again in his career. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw it.
I'm okay with that. Keep him healthy, man. But it's going to be a weird year because you and I talked a little bit off the air. It's going to be.
Well, let's just waste the regular season then.
That's what it's going to be.
Let's just waste it, and we won't play. He won't play back-to-backs, and they'll slog along. They'll win a lot of games with their backup center, and at the end of the day, they'll be the 5th seed.
Well, the other side of that is the fan base. Embiid could drop 50 in a back-to-back nights and be like, all right, cool. Show me what he does come May.
Exactly. Yeah, he dropped 70 this year, and it was, what are you going to do in the postseason?
Yeah.
I just think sometimes we get too cautious about preserving instead of saying, let's play a damn season. Let's play the season. Is Boston worried about preserving? You hear any preserving coming out of Boston?
Well, Porzingis was hurt for a while, wasn't he? So, I mean, they didn't preserve. It ended up not affecting them because they have 2 other stars in Brown and Tatum.
Are they talking about preserving, not playing back-to-backs?
No, but what has been the Sixers' problem?
You know what the Boston Celtics do? They kick your ass during the regular season. They go in with a number 1 seed, and they still kick your ass again.
We had Mikey Met, and now we have Mikey Celtic over here.
I'm just saying, let's be real about this. Instead of thinking like, okay, let's preserve our guys for the playoffs, how about you get on a roll and establish yourself as a really good team here?
Yeah, but what has been the Sixers' problem in the postseason? Embiid hasn't been healthy.
Okay, so is there a guarantee that because are you gonna only play him 50 games to guarantee his health for the postseason?
No, but I think it gives you a better chance.
What's your plan? What do you want to do with him? To preserve him for the playoffs, what do you want to do? What's the plan? The Bill plan.
Well, no back-to-backs, I think, is a help.
No back-to-backs.
And I'm okay if he plays 50 games. I'm okay if he plays 50 games.
50 of 80, too.
Sign me up as long as he's full throttle, 100% come.
And if he plays 50 of 82, where are the Sixers?
It depends on what Andre Drummond gives you with this team. I mean, you figure.
What do you think Andre Drummond is going to give you in 32 games?
Assuming Paul George is healthy, and if you load manage both of those guys on different days, you let them play together at times. But Paul George and Maxey with Drummond should be able to win you games. This isn't going to be where Embiid load manage. You got Paul Reed as your starting center.
All right, listen. I'm just saying. We're all concerned about preservation. Instead of let's go out and have a season. Like, that's what's bugging me right now. You're going to preserve to the playoffs. Is that guaranteeing you're still going to beat Boston? I don't know. Is it? Are you as good as Boston? Let's go out and establish that you're as good as Boston. Let's have a team that plays together for an entire year and looks good.
So what would you do with him? Would you play him
I would play him
82?
occasionally on back-to-backs. I would play him more than 50 games. I need him to play more than 50 games. What am I going to do with 50 games?
Look, 50 may be an exaggeration. 60, 65.
You think I'm going to beat the Knicks if he plays 50 games? You think I'm going to finish ahead of the Knicks if Embiid plays 50 games?
I don't really think it matters with seeding in the NBA.
It doesn't? Well, guess what? The statistics will say that unless you're, except for 1 year with Miami, unless you're a top 3 seed, you don't get to a title game.
Yeah, but that's also because those numbers are skewed, in my opinion. It's because the better teams usually finish in the top of the league. Whereas if you're only not finishing in the top of the league because Joel hasn't played that many games.
It means you have to come from further back to get there. That's what it means. If your seeding is lower, you're going to have to come back from further back, and you're also not going to have home court advantage in certain series. That's what it means. And if you by happenstance you fall out of it, then you got to go through a play-in tournament, which is what they did last year.
That I don't want to see. That makes me nervous. But we got a lot of time to talk Sixers.
All right.
We got to do closing arguments.
It's time for closing arguments.
Now, closing arguments on the Mike Missanelli Show. Brought to you by Lowenthal and Abrams Injury Attorneys. Injured in an accident, call 800-876-LAWYER or visit LowenthalAbrams.com.
Oh, my closing argument. I can't relinquish the Sirianni principle. And my closing argument today deals with the people that don't really think it was a big deal. And I know you're entitled to your opinion, but I think I want you to zero in on what's at work here. Number one, as the CEO, as a CEO is really kind of under fire right now. The last thing you can do is get involved in fan nonsense. So when fans taunt you, the thing is you got to just let it flow over your head, not get into your ears, the whole bit, and go about your business unfettered. If you let that bother you, then what else are you letting bother you? That's the last thing that should bother you in your game preparation, in your team building situation. And that's what bugged me about it mostly. Now, the kid's coming to the press conference. I get it. I get what type of guy he is. I get that he loves his kids. I get that he thought it was a cutesy thing. But to be that unaware that, guess what? There were some contentious points in this game, especially with the crowd as far as your job title goes, that maybe they're going to be asked about. So people are going to look at that and go, wow, look at that. I mean, is he trying to disarm me? Both things should not happen when it comes to a game that you win by 4 points. All right? You take the win, you ignore that the crowd was heckling you, and you get about the business and say, this is a great win, and we hope we can build on that. That's my closing argument, and that's why it bothered me. And I know people out there, it didn't bother you. If it didn't bother you, guess what? You're a more stable person than I am. And I acknowledge that. So there you go. Thank you. Thank you for being more stable.
And it bothered me. Obviously, it bothered you, and it bothered a lot of people, not only locally but nationally. But I keep coming back to, it doesn't matter what we think. It doesn't matter what the national media thinks. It matters what the players in that locker room think. And if somehow they rally behind their head coach over the next few weeks, it's going to tell you a lot about how much they respect their coach. They may not. We don't know. But we're going to find out over the next few weeks. So.
Alexander the Great has his suit of armor on. Troops, let's go! Da-da-da-da-da-da! Have a great rest of the night, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow.